Melissa will make sure that the questions get answered by the panelists or the people presenting. We're going to start with a roundtable discussion from some local producers. And then that'll be about an hour and 15 minutes. The last 15 minutes is going to be a Q&A. And if we miss your questions during the panel, they can be asked there. And then we'll do a yoga break at 10:30. If you are not interested in doing the yoga, you can do whichever kind of stretching you want, or go down and get some coffee if you'd like. And then there will be an hour lunch break. There was supposed to be a live feed of me in the store, but apparently we're not allowed to do that since we don't have a permit from the city to enter the building without hard hats and everything. So there's going to be a short video of me and Kevin Hansen from Green Fire Construction giving a short update, and then my intern Ashley, who's in the chat or in the video here, made a great slideshow of what's going on in the co-op. And then we'll have a prize giveaway, and I'll tell you what that is right now. I'll tell you what the prize is based on. It's during one of the breaks, maybe the lunch break, you can find the oldest thing in your pantry, like sugar or cumin or something like that from 1985, be a winner. And we have some fun prizes to give. And then in the afternoon, we'll learn from the state and the county about regulations. There might be a lot of Q&A there too, especially if you haven't jumped into that field yet. It's okay to jump in and out of this seminar all day long. We know that you guys are busy, and I know Melissa is running a dairy farm, so so that requires a special attention. All right, and yeah, maybe we should have just had 5 minutes for the intro. I'll introduce myself, and then we can just dive right into the panel and maybe get a few more minutes on that. My name is Jeffrey Turon. I'm the general manager of Oshkosh Food Co-op. We were incorporated in 2013, and it's been a 7 or 8 year journey to get to where we are. We're about to open our doors in late summer, maybe August. Sounds exciting. Right now, the building's being constructed on the corners of Jackson and Pearl and Oshkosh, right in downtown Oshkosh, right next to the university. And we will be a very local focused co-op, providing a minimum of 20% of our products are going to be local. And my managers will be working directly with people like you to get products in the store. And my experience with small grocery is you really need to cultivate relationships between the store and the grower, the producer, so that it benefits everybody. We are looking for a win-win scenario on the local scene. And I'm really excited to be part of this project. And Melissa is the board secretary, and Tracy is also on the board, and everybody on the board has been doing amazing work to get this project off. And I'm just very happy that we can do this.
So Jeffrey, do you mind if I throw a question or two in here for you?
Yeah, totally.
So when we were searching for a general manager, we were advised, or we were sort of warned, that experienced general managers like you don't really exist for us startups all of the time, and that you are sort of unicorns. And so I just want to reiterate how fortunate we are to have someone like you that has this level of expertise coming to our store to help our store succeed, but also to launch this particular aspect of it, which is very important to us, which is the 20% or more local goods. So how long were you a general manager?
8 years, I think. It started in 2013 and it's 2020, so 8 years, yeah. You know, the time just flies. It's hard to keep track of those things.
It does, it does.
In the country, there's about 300 food co-ops, and right now there's 5 co-ops that are startups, I believe, coming off the ground. I know there are at least 100 in the works at any given point in the stage of development, and there's not that many general managers to go around. A lot of the managers that were around from the second wave of co-ops in the 70s are retiring, and there's just a lot of gap in knowledge there. It's actually my dream. My wife and I were talking about this over coffee in the kitchen the other day, to start a co-op management school in America, so that we can build these, rather than sucking people from other industries and trying to train them later in life. Having people right out of college learn on this track. Does that conclude your questions, Melissa?
It does. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions for me from anybody, since we have 6 minutes until the panel?
Let's open it up. So our current structure is, so the general manager is really like the CEO of the store. That's essentially your role. You're at the top level, and then you will create all of these positions underneath you. And so who are some of the titles, would you say, that individuals like us on this call that are interested in vending might work with?
Yeah, 3 people in particular: the kitchen manager, the center store manager, and the produce manager. The center store manager would deal with anything like packaged food, shelf-stable things, and wellness items, like if you're making soap or something like that. The kitchen manager, anything that's prepared. So we could use your ingredients in making food, or you have food that's made in a certified kitchen that we would retail. And then produce is where's my heart is, because I was the produce manager at my last co-op. The relationship is very tight knit. We expect you to be able to come into the co-op and talk to our managers and learn exactly what you need to get into the store. There's a sort of one-on-one interaction there, and it's building the relationship and making sure that everybody is being supported.
And so what does your timeline look like for hiring some of those folks? Again, you're really the guy right now, but what does it look like in the coming months?
Great news, I just hired a center store manager.
What?
Yeah.
Hey.
Which is exciting. And she lives in Appleton, which to me is pretty local, since it's just 15 minutes away, depending how fast you go. And the kitchen and the produce managers by the end of next month is my target. There's some questions in the chat. Can you please give your idea of local, asks Monica. People define that in different ways. That's actually a deep question happening at the co-op right now, whether or not it's me who gets to define local, or the board who gets to define local, since they're the ones who've been building this co-op for so long. And I think we're leaning right now, I don't think anything's been passed, Melissa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're leaning towards the board is declaring at the beginning of the co-op local is a 100-mile radius from Oshkosh, which is pretty hyper local to me.
Yeah, that's correct. Or within Wisconsin, all of Wisconsin, or within 100 miles of the co-op.
And if you're just outside the 100 miles, like you're 101 miles, we're still going to like you. We will still promote you as maybe regional or something like that. But we really want to focus on the local economy.
Hi, my name's Melissa Hack, and I worked at the Stevens Point Area Food Co-op for 4 years. I was a produce buyer there as well. And we ended up defining local as community, which was within 50 miles of our co-op, and then local, which was 150, and then Wisconsin, and then regional. So that's just a possible idea to throw out there.
Thank you, Melissa. I imagine a map on the wall to clarify. And it is true when you go into any store, what they mean by local changes. You can go into a Kroger store and local means California. You know, they clearly defining and marking and being honest is important. Lynn Stewart asks, it sounds like I had options to go to. Why Oshkosh? My wife and I aren't big, our two options, there are several co-ops that we could have gone to. The two that were interesting based on location, that's really important to us, not a big city, not a coast, we're kind of rural-y people, were Oshkosh or Fairbanks, Alaska. And Fairbanks, Alaska, it takes a long time to get there and we would never see our family. So, and it's dark for the winter time. So Oshkosh had the right amount of charm, and this the location is good. The local scene is awesome here compared to Rapid City. You guys really have something going on. We have something going on, and just the work of and dedication of the co-op board is something that was very impressive. All right, 1 minute till panel discussion. If there's any more questions about me or the co-op. Okay. Thank you, panelists, for attending today. I'm going to give your name and where you're from, and then we'll go around and the first 2 to 5 minutes of who you are and what you're doing right now, and then we'll get into the deeper questions. So on our panel today, we have Jay Supple from Fox Brewing, Paula Holman from Red Barn Family Farms, David Payne from Potter's Crackers, Tracy Vince of Olden's Organics, and Jane Stevens from 4 Elements Herbals. So let's start with Jay, and just tell us who you are and what you're doing.
Morning. Thank you. Pretty much born and raised here in Oshkosh. And our family has been involved in the restaurant business for a long time. In fact, if you're familiar with, obviously you wouldn't be, but everyone else would be with Shakey's Pizza. My father opened that up in 1968. And so we've been here a long time. And then in 1995 is when myself and my 2 brothers and our wives opened up Fox River Brewing Company / Fratello's at the time. And so our whole background has always been pretty much the food and restaurant business. And getting into the wholesale business in 2015 is when that's when that piece of our business happened and stuff like that. So it's been interesting for us being in the restaurant business and now into the wholesale business. And as you mentioned earlier, working with local, obviously like Wagner's in Oshkosh, or you're working with Kroger's or Costco, and Festival. Everybody has different, dynamics and how they operate and how you connect with them and stuff like that. And I think the food co-op is great for the fact is, you're bringing in a lot of local stuff. And for us, it's really cool because there's a lot of beers that we do that are done in smaller batches and things like that. We're going into a Costco or things like that. That's really difficult to do things like that. And to have an opportunity to showcase, other beers and, obviously our big ones, Blue Bobber. So to have other smaller batch beers and stuff like that we could showcase and who we really are and stuff like that, it's going to be pretty cool. And hopefully, eventually once we get through this COVID, is to do sampling. I mean, that's the one thing we haven't been able to do for a year now is showcase our product in anywhere from a food co-op to a grocery store, liquor store, wherever and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of cool things to come in the horizon here. But thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jay. Jane, and then we'll go to Tracy.
Okay, I had to unmute. Sorry about that. So I'm sorry I missed the question. Is it an introduction?
Yep, introduction.
Hi, well, thank you for having me today. I am Jane Hawley Stevens from 4 Elements, and I'm in North Freedom, Wisconsin. I'm at my little apothecary here in our 4-way stop sign town. So I've been growing herbs since 81 and started my company in 87, and have been growing herbs and making my products ever since. So we became certified organic in 1990. And last year, 2020, we were Moses Organic Farmer of the Year.
Okay, and are you in your store right now? Looks like very store.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Don't worry, nobody will come in. It's North Freedom.
Tracy,
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, Tracy, could you introduce yourself now, and then we'll go to David.
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tracy Vins. My husband and I own Olden Organics Farm in Ripon, Wisconsin, obviously Wisconsin. I grew up in Green Bay, and to say produce has been part of my life forever, I would not be kidding. My dad ran the Green Bay Farmers Market for many, many, many years. And in order to spend any time with him on a Saturday, I went to market with him. And instead of spending time with him, he gave me to whichever produce farmer needed help selling their produce on Saturday mornings. So that's how I learned my love for produce, was by selling other people's produce. And then I met my husband in 1997, and in 2003 we moved out to our amazing farm, but unfortunately it's in Ripon. I wish I could take my farm and put it somewhere else in the state, but I love my farm, and we are about 1.25 or one and a quarter hours from Madison, Milwaukee, and Green Bay. So I think we're pretty centrally located, although there's not a whole lot here in Ripon, but us, and I love it. So we started growing 16 years ago. So this is our 16th season. And in 2016, we put up a commercial kitchen. So we have a processing facility on site where we make a line of spiralized vegetable noodles and different raw veggie creations. And we became certified organic through MOSA in 2015. So that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. David, and then we'll go to Paula.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm having some internet issues, but I'm back. So yeah, my name's David Payne. I've been working with Potter since 2010 when I moved to Madison from the Sheboygan area, where I was with Johnsonville for 5 years before that. Yeah, so I've been everything from a baker, mixer, became shipping packaging manager there in 2013, became the general manager there in 2017, and then I purchased the company from the former owner, Nancy Potter, who decided to retire in October of 2019. So a little over a year into owning the thing myself, and have some big plans for the place to kind of scale it even further than what we've done already. I know we've been around a while, and you can find us pretty much in every state at this point. So definitely glad to be part of the panel this morning. I've seen our company grow from 1 or 2 oven operation to now something that was pretty big, and I don't think anything that Nancy really had envisioned, for the company when she started it. So it's happy to be along for the ride, happy to be in the ownership role now, and happy to be here today.
Thank you, David. And Paula.
Hi, Paula Holman from Red Barn Family Farms, and I also am grateful to be part of the panel today and really excited to see the direction and the progress. I know this Oshkosh Food Co-op has been a long time and planning and coming. So very exciting. My husband, Terry, and I started Red Barn Family Farms in 2008. So we're about 13 years old, fairly young company. My husband's a dairy veterinarian, has been here in Northeast Wisconsin for almost 25 years, I guess. But it really came out of his experience as a dairy veterinarian. This idea for Red Barn and really the impetus for starting our company. I always say we started with a mission rather than a product. We really wanted to advocate for small scale dairy farming. My husband sees the value of the small family farm, which is rapidly disappearing from our state. And also to advocate just for humane dairy production. So we are a wholesale cheese company. We hand select small family farms here in Northeast Wisconsin that meet what we call the Red Barn rules. So certain standards for animal health, animal welfare, animal care. We have our farms humane certified by the American Humane Association. And then we use a fair trade pay scale. That's really key. The thing that I think differentiates our company the most is we use an above market pay scale. Our small family farms have a difficult time surviving on the commodity market where there's a lot of price fluctuation. And so we use our own fair trade pay scale that helps them remain sustainable, but also rewards them for excellence. We then ship our milk to 3 area cheese plants. They handcraft our milk into cheese for us, and then we wholesale here in Wisconsin, but also nationally.
Awesome, thank you, Paula.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have you start on the next one. How long were you in business before you took the plunge to wholesale? And how did you start selling in grocery stores or food co-ops?
And I'm sorry, did you want me to take that first one, did you say, or are you just throwing it out to the panel?
Oh, let's start with you since you're on a roll.
So we, from the beginning, decided to be a wholesale company. Our children were young at the time, and we knew that just, starting with farmers markets, while we love them, just wasn't going to work for us. So I'll tell you the story really of how we started. We contacted the Sendix grocery chain in Milwaukee. We needed one grocery chain to validate us and to give us a start. And so contacted the cheese buyer there at the time, and they were kind enough really to give us our start in the wholesale business. Obviously, then we needed a distributor to get our products there. We couldn't drive to Milwaukee all the time to get our cheese there. So that was kind of dipping our toes into just finding somebody who would give us a start. And then they pulled us through distribution so that we had a start in working with distributors.
That's awesome. It's got to be personally validating for you guys to have that first jump into a real grocery store.
Yeah, and we needed it. So grateful for those people. Really, a lot of people along the way that gave us validation and a start.
Any on the panel? Anybody want to share their story of their first plunge into wholesale?
We're kind of we're interesting because we started out in '95 our brewery, and with really not really the intention to really do wholesale, but I think if we got further along into the brewery situation, we saw a lot of breweries around the country that were obviously doing packaging on the shelves, and for us it started out as a marketing thing. We didn't want competition to come in with a brewery similar to what we were doing, and then being on the shelf and not having anything to market our product and things like that. So in 2014 is when we decided to do it. But I'm sure everybody on the panel knows once you get into it, there's a lot that has to happen before you even get to the first grocery store. Your connection, the labels. I mean, just going through the whole process of developing labels, UPC codes, and 6-pack cartons, and cases, and all UPC codes. Because now, like for us, you walk into a grocery store, you have a pick 6, you have a 6-pack, you have a 12-pack, you have a case. And so there was a learning experience early on that we had to make sure that we were ready to go. And when we, it's one of those things you can't really dip your toe in. You either got to go into it full bore, or you're not going to do it and stuff like that. And so we spent a lot of time in 2014 in really researching and making sure, we walked into, I can't tell you how many grocery stores, and put different colored labels up, the different labels that were out there, just to make sure that we weren't, we got out the clutter and stuff like that, so people would notice us and stuff like that. Our story is similar too. We were very fortunate. A festival took us early on. They were one of our first ones. And so once we got into festival, that helped us go out to other places, if it was Kroger's or Costco's or whatever, and said, hey, we're here, and take a look at what we've done and stuff like that. And that was kind of our first start at it, was that. And we've been fortunate enough to expand from there.
That's awesome. It seems like that first anchor store is really essential. Tracy, how did you get into, what was your first store?
Our first store was Willy Street Co-ops down in Madison. When I say wholesale, I mean wholesale from our line of cut veg. We have been selling to grocery stores in the past for just our raw veg, but our fresh cut vegetable line was Willy Street. My husband called and asked to have a meeting with their produce buyer, and it ended up being 3 of their produce managers from each of their 3 stores, and then Megan Minnick, their head buyer, and sat down, and they took a shot on us, and we started in their stores, and then it kind of spiraled from there, because other stores obviously shop their competition. And so a number of the other co-ops in the state saw our products on the shelves at Willy's and started calling us directly and wanting us to be in their stores as well. So the visibility that we got from being on the shelves at Willy Street Co-op was invaluable.
Yeah, and I can kind of echo that too from Potter's, being from Madison. We started here at the farmers markets. Before doing the Dane County one, we did a lot of the littler ones in town. And I think Willy Co-op has an awesome kind of setup for new retailers called Retail Ready. And so they'll give you a lot of advice on kind of what they're looking for as buyers, and it's not always what you think it is. And so they really help you out with that. And I think as Tracy had said, the competitors do shop there, and the co-ops have kind of a deep network. So what we ended up doing is expanding to the Stevens Point area co-op, the People's Co-op in La Crosse and Rochester, got in with the Co-op Warehouse Partners in Minneapolis, which hooked us up with Seward. And so we kind of took that as its own channel. At the same time, we were kind of opening up other channels with like Ascendix in Milwaukee was also our first big chain and kind of validation that spawned our first step of growth. So that's kind of how we got into it. It was pretty much right off the bat, we knew it was something we needed to do to scale the company. And luckily we have a great local support here in Madison, because once, like I said, it got into the Willy Co-op, then the other co-ops are fine, but all the local stores, Metcalf's, Formogenations, Festival Foods, Whole Foods, there's all those here. And we have a big chunk of business just delivering around Madison alone. So that's where we got our start.
So how many pitches did you have to do? Did you guys have to do before you actually got that start? Because it sounds, if you're in 5 stores, does that mean you pitched it to 500 different people or 50 different people? What's the hope factor there?
Also, I'll take that one. I think basically it's kind of a hit or miss type of thing. I mean, you really have to spread a wide net. And it depends on who you're talking to. Obviously, you can kind of like shape where you think your product should be positioned and things like that with who you're even reaching out to begin with. But I think smaller companies benefit most from casting a wide net and kind of realizing that maybe 90% of these people won't get back to you. But if 1 or 2 do, that could be really kind of change a big change for you, or in a positive way, even if one or two hit. So that's what our goal was always to just cast that wide net and hope to land, you know, one or two or three of them.
Yeah, I will say from our side, we're, you know, besides you know, grocery stores and stuff like that, we're out, you know, casting for restaurants and bars and all that. And I can tell you, we beat the streets a lot. I mean, even though we have 7 distributors, we're statewide, we still have to represent our product and stuff, because there's nobody better than any one of us on this panel that can talk about our business and our own product. And we're the story. I always say we're the story behind all our products and stuff. So we're out there selling. I mean, we were fortunate a couple of years ago, we got in with the Milwaukee Brewers, and they have Blue Bobber on tap there. But it took a lot of meetings, a lot of phone calls as well. You know, we're in the Timber Rattlers, we're in Booyah and Green Bay, Doc Spiders and stuff like that. But each time that we get into one of those venues, and, you know, the arena here in town and stuff like that, I'm typically the one making the call along with our distributor. Our distributors are great around the state, but at the end of the day, it's all of us on the panel who always has to tell the story. And I think all of us have a great story because we've been doing it for a long time. And it's that story is what really sells the local side of it and who we are as a family and stuff.
Jay, what company are you with? I'm sorry, I missed that.
We're with Fox River Brewing Company in Oshkosh and Appleton and stuff. So
okay,
and
nice. Okay, well, should I tell my story about wholesaling?
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't mention that I was with 4 Elements, that I make 4 Elements, organic herbals, wellness products, and teas. And I was a very misplaced Wisconsinite in Texas for 6 years in the late 80s. And my first customer was the second Whole Foods store in the world. And so, I mean, that's when I walked in there, I had my soaps like kind of hand colored with colored pencils in muslin wraps. And, you know, so they were the ones who held my hand and said, like, you need UPCs. And, you know, don't use lard. You have to use vegetable oils because, you know, this is a more vegetarian market. And so that was a person who really helped me. And then when Whole Foods started demanding everything for free, I just said, you know, I'm not interested in trying to play that game, because I'm sure you did the math and you win. And, you know, in the marketplace, like at different trade shows, people told me that that was probably a really good idea, but they were just taking over and buying, you know, pushing out co-ops and mom and pops all over the place at the time. So it was just, you know, they were just making all the rules. And so I always stuck with co-ops, and the way I got in with them is just by making appointments. And, you know, same with the mom and pops, which used to be everywhere. And then, you know, I saw the Whole Foods take over everything, which was kind of heartbreaking. But so what else? Oh, so then like I moved back to Madison in 91. And I remember I got the value added producers grant to expand my teas about 8 years ago. And I went to Woodman's corporate office and asked them, and they picked up my teas. So again, then you have to go through the distributor, which is a little more of a cut in your wage, but that's just the way you have to price it. So I had worked with Woodman's and their distributor L&L for quite a while, and I realized I was making about $0.25 on a box, and those are so much effort to make those teas. And so I raised my price, and they dropped me, and that just really kind of ruined. All of a sudden, all my teas were just sitting here, and I had to hustle all over again. And so I'm almost in roundies now, but we'll see. But the main part of my business is wellness products. And I mean, the good news is herbs keep growing at about 8 to 9% per year in sales. But the bad news is that everybody knows somebody who makes their own tinctures and creams and lip balms and everything. So it's from when I started, when I could walk in a store and just get have people buy all of my products 6 deep. I have just had so much competition now that it's really much harder for me to sell in co-ops and what mom and pops are left. So anyway, I've seen so much shift in the marketplace, but I just love co-ops, and I say that like we're the roots of that market. Like I was there when the co-op started, and I mean we should really stick together. So yay, Oshkosh.
Go co-ops.
Yeah.
Jane, is there something that you wish somebody like you would have told you when you got started in this?
Yeah. To put yourself in the equation of profit margins. Like I think so many of us are altruistic. Like we want people to have clean food. Like we don't want chemicals in the market, on earth, and we just want the right things. And so we go about it with all our enthusiasm and, vision. And then, after some years, that vision, you see that you just need to put yourself in the equation of, profit margin and everything more. And so that would have been a really one good thing that I could have learned early on.
And I'm going to apply my own interpretation to that. Does that mean make sure you're getting paid and not self-sacrificing?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for that clarification. But yeah.
How do you make sure that happens, especially when you're starting up?
Boy, that's a tricky question, isn't it? I bet we all have our stories on that one, and they're all different.
Paula, what do you think about that question? How do you?
Yeah, that is really important. But the reality is sometimes when you are getting started, the pay is not always there. I mean, you're making sacrifices to launch something, and yeah, it's hard. I would add to that. I wish someone had told me it's going to be harder than you can possibly imagine. Harder to make sales, harder to pay yourself, harder, Jay, you mentioned all the things you need to learn about wholesaling, barcoding and labeling and legal requirements and what you need for insurance and all of that. So there's just, there's a huge learning curve. And I think, it's you have to learn what you need to do right to price yourself, maybe to become more efficient so that you can actually pay yourself. But that being said, there are also rewards that you don't expect. Help comes in areas that you would never expect. I wish someone had told me that. People that will support you that you wouldn't have seen that coming, and the value of relationships.
Paula, you're really right on a point there that it takes so many things that are unseen to pull it together. Like the FDA walks in my apothecary and like changes everything up. And, I had insect repellent, and now I can't call it insect repellent unless I pay some fee, which they haven't determined yet. And, it's just like, oh, but you're right. There's so much unknown.
And when you mentioned too, how the market changes, and even in the 13 years that we've been in business, I've seen remarkable changes in the market, just as far as distribution and food safety requirements even. So constantly being aware of those changes and how you need to adapt and what you need to do to keep your business afloat. And as you say, make sure that you're sustainable as a business. It doesn't help for us to try to sustain small family farms if we're not sustainable.
That's right.
David, do you have anything to throw in on this? Things that you wish was shared when you started?
Absolutely. I echo some things Jane said in terms of understanding your costs. I think everyone kind of gets where your break even might be, but there's a lot more that goes into it. With FDA licensing and a lot of things she also brought up. one other thing I would add is that, I just kind of needed someone in my life to just say it's something you could do. I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit, but never really had it coached out of me or taught out of me through school. But I was slinging, like ballpoint pens out of my locker in 7th grade, for $1 each. And so when I got into this, it's something I realized I could do. And when I had the support of my wife and then some other people that were kind of in the food business here, that's kind of what it took for me to be like, yes, this is something I can do. It's going to be hard. But just know that it's not impossible, knowing that it's not impossible and that entrepreneurial kind of spirit exists in a lot of people without them really knowing it or having it coached out. But yeah, I guess that would be something I wish I would have understood when I was a lot younger. I would have saved a lot of money on college.
What about you, Tracy?
Oh, something, let's see. I definitely echo what Jane said as far as make sure you pay yourself. I think we're all everybody's so quick to want to get their products on the shelves at a grocery store or a co-op. And sometimes you sell yourself a little too short. So always remember that you have to get something as well for your product. You're not doing this for free because that'd be crazy. And the other thing would be is just pace yourselves. Don't jump in too quickly and make sure that everything is right before you go to print on labels, before you get your particular size containers or whatever. I remember our first run of labels, my UPC codes were too small. They weren't readable. So I had hundreds of thousands of labels that we had to throw away because of it. Or I purchased clamshells that were too small for my packaging. So definitely think before you leap. And certainly don't be afraid to ask for help. Even if somebody isn't in the same field as you per se. I know like Paula and we bounce ideas off of each other all the time. And I don't know a thing about dairy farming or cheese. And I love her cheese, but we all can bounce ideas off of each other. We're all business owners. And one thing that Jeffrey said, become friends with your department managers at the co-ops, at the grocery stores. They have so much information too that they're very willing to share. All you have to do is ask.
I think one other thing that I'd like to add too is be aware of what is a good fit for you as far as a customer. You might want to sell to this particular customer, or you might want to work with this distributor, but you've got to look at everything that's involved. What are the expenses, for example, of working with a distributor? Are they going to require such high, let's say insurance? Are their insurance requirements so high that you would need to have many more times the products that you have, or many more times the inventory to make it worthwhile to even work with them? So I think just, be aware of your limitations, your abilities, and choose who you can be successful with, because there are situations that you can get yourself into that could absolutely kill you as a company.
And Jay, is there something you could share that you wish were told to you when you started?
No, I can echo everybody's comment and things like that. It's when you're small, and we're all small compared to obviously everybody else out there, the margins are razor thin at times and stuff like that. And making decisions on packaging and labels, obviously we're the same way. And then what you have to do is, once you have your labels, then you got to keep on reinventing yourself again over and over. That you always, even though it's the same product, you don't always want the same look again. You want to refresh your look. And that was probably the one thing we did in the last year with this thing, with this whole pandemic going on and stuff like that. We said, how do we want to come out of this? Because we knew coming out of this, it's a new world. I mean, our buyers are going to be different. It just is. And so we wanted to refresh our brand. And so a lot of our labels were all refreshed, our cartons. And now that was a big investment. There again, we're still hoping on the backside of it that it does well for us and stuff like that. But I think the old world, what we just left, it's behind us now. And I think every one of us has to look inside of our company and figure out, how do we want to go after that guest, that customer? How's that customer going to, what are they going to be looking for this time and stuff like that? Because a lot of our customers weren't going in the restaurants. They just weren't coming in. And so our income majority, especially for our brewing staff, was on the wholesale side. And if you can imagine, obviously on a 6-barrel, half barrel, we make more money than we do on a 6-pack or a 12-pack. And I lost all my 6-barrel sales. I lost all my half-barrel sales. So as a company, we had to really transition into the packaging world. And that's why we got more into 12-packs and variety packs and things like that, because that's where the income was. And it allowed us to keep our full brewery staff without laying anybody off, as well as our management team. So we had to pivot quite a bit in the last 12 months just to keep everybody employed. So but we were fortunate enough, everybody was able to keep their jobs and everything like that. So it was good that we got through it. And like all of us, when we get through this, as we're getting through it now, we're going to be better. I think we're going to be better from the social media. We're better with that and stuff like that. So there are definitely things that we're going to take out of this that we definitely will be better.
On that note, is there anybody on the panel that has had to pivot because of COVID and the world that's happening last year? That should be relevant. That would be relevant to people trying to start right now.
The website, you got to relying on the website. So we just rebuilt our website, and I'm still editing it and pulling it together. So people buy online. At least I think that would be difficult for Jay, but for others, well, for me, it sure makes a difference anyway. For herbal wellness products, last March, a year ago, was my best month ever when people were looking for their herbal immune support. So that was really fun in our shipping department then. But now the stores are really super cautious because, we got to see, everything has got to turn over so that they make a profit too. And they have to choose really wisely. So anyway, I just think if you're getting into something right now, well, farmers markets are awesome. That's a great way to get started. I did that for about 10 years in Baraboo as I was doing my other part of my work. But still, so I love farmers markets because you get the feedback right away too with a little investment, just your time. So that's a great way to develop a product.
Any other COVID tickets that you guys have?
I didn't hear that last comment, Tom. You were cutting out.
I was just wondering if anybody else on the panel has had to pivot during COVID over the last year on how they sell.
We did. We in the wintertime, we'd been doing farmers markets. And when those started closing down, we didn't know what we were going to do. Our coolers were stock full of winter veg and greenhouses full of greens. So we started an online home delivery service. And I never thought I would be doing home delivery, but we are. And we sell a bunch of other people's products as well, Paula's and David's. And, we may continue this forever. We've really got a huge rapport with customers and a large area that we deliver to. And we love it. But definitely, small businesses are much more set up to pivot quickly than larger companies. So I think that was, one of the strongest things that us small producers had going for us when COVID started, was that we were able to change what we were doing quickly.
And when I shared in my intro that I loved the local food scene, 50% of that love was Tracy's website. So just came and thought there's such a great connection, and especially between Poco Pizza, Thunderbird, and Olden Organics. It's just like this wonderful triangle that we saw. So working with each other is something that I've never seen in a different market before. David mentioned earlier that coaching and mentoring was something that was important. I was wondering if you guys were able to find coaches or mentors, or know places where people can find such people now on, you know, business development or personal professional development too.
Well, I signed up again for the Value Added Producers Grant and got it. And the grant writer, Jim Gage, and his team were really helpful at helping recraft our direction. So that's been really good. So anyway, I found even the process of writing a grant makes you really thoughtful and kind of retooling everything. So I thought that was one good thing that worked for me. And SCORE, I've been working with SCORE, the retired executives, and they're all over the state, I think. And that has been insightful. I mean, a lot of it, they're retired and things are changing so fast, so their tricks aren't maybe as good, but some of the things that I've picked up and run with are making a big difference. So yeah, I think that's another great one, is that group SCORE, retired business execs.
Yeah, I would second that with Jane. I've done some work with SCORE when I was in the process of purchasing the company from Nancy. They gave me some really good advice because they've been at it for 40 plus years. Another huge one for Potters has been FAB, which is the Food and Beverage Association, or it's basically a business group for Wisconsin food and beverage makers. And we were fortunate enough to get selected for their business accelerator program a couple years ago. And they put us in touch with the head guy, Brad Rostkowski, who's got a bunch of experience with bigger companies and knowing how to scale. And then Tara Johnson, formerly of Tara's Way, has been amazing. She's part of the Food Finance Institute in Wisconsin, and she really has a nose for how companies can really get some money to scale. And she's very creative about it. Very open to all sorts of different products. And so I would definitely suggest looking up that Food Finance Institute. They're extremely helpful.
You know, in our situation with breweries and stuff like that, breweries are great too. You know, as well as a lot of with farms and stuff like that. We collaborate with a lot of the breweries. You know, with if I have a discussion yesterday with Dan from Bare Bones, and stuff like that, the guys at Fifth Ward and stuff. So we have good friends like in Madison and Great Dane. We collaborate with them, Hinterland and Green Bay, and so for us it's kind of nice. Is we're all learning because we're all small enough, and so anytime any questions comes up, it's never a surprise to get another brewery calling myself, or I reach out to them and just ask them questions if it's not just on a beer style or if it's packaging or whatever. So breweries have a nice networking, and you're seeing more and more collaborations between breweries doing beers and stuff like that. And that's some of the stuff that we hope with the co-op. We get the local breweries in Oshkosh that we do a beer specifically for the co-op and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities in that. And for me, probably my biggest thing was probably, honestly, for me, was my parents, because growing up in the restaurant business, I seen it early on. I seen the nights, I seen the weekends, and I seen the pressure and stuff like that, staffing and stuff. So growing up in it, when I got into it, did our own deal in '95, we knew it was going to be nights. We knew it was going to be weekends, and, we knew all that. So it really wasn't anything that we didn't expect, other than it was obviously a much different concept. It was a brewery. I never brewed beer. I mean, pizzas, but I never brewed beer before. And stuff. So that was a learning experience right away, trying to learn all that and stuff. So, but I think the one thing I probably learned more than anything from my parents was customer service. And I think if there's one thing missing today, is customer service. I mean, we all go out, we just don't get the service that we did for years and stuff like that. And I always said, when we went into the wholesale business, that was the one thing I thought we could do better than just about anybody out there, was give customer service. So we're used to it. We're restaurant people. You're going to give customer service. And I think that's the one thing where we've excelled on our wholesale side, is we give service. Even if our distributor can't deliver somebody beer on a Saturday night or whatever, if they call the brewery, we'll deliver it. I mean, stuff like that. And we're legally allowed to do that stuff. So that's helped us. And I always laugh too, and you guys will all laugh at this. If we usually have to call somebody at weekends, they usually say, "What's going to cost you more?" Well, I don't charge any more for my beer when I deliver it on Saturday, Sunday, or I don't charge any more for my meals in our restaurant on a Saturday or Sunday. So it's the same price, and stuff like that. So I think all of us can attest to that, that there are certain rules that we don't have, stuff like that. So.
And Jay, when you're talking about networking with local breweries and similar businesses, is that something that is just passive and happens, or do you have to be active and intentional with trying to network?
No, I think you have to be active and stuff like that. I think you still have to reach out to people and stuff like that. Like I said, this last year has been so difficult for all of us. I mean, I've never done so many Zoom in my life than I have this last year. I mean, I think all 7 of my distributor meetings this year at the year end for this next year were all Zoom meetings and stuff like that. And we all sell our personality to a point. I mean, it's all about our company, it's all about our personality. So you're trying to sell your personality, and you're trying to show them labels, over Zoom and things like that. That was difficult, but yeah, reaching out it's big. I mean, like you said, we're fortunate. Thunderbird Bakery opened up and stuff like that. With Wagner's opening up the market and stuff like that. There's been a lot of cool things that have happened, over the last 2-3 years, and I think there's going to be more of it, because it's nice to have the small independents besides the big groceries. I mean, they're great for a reason too, because they carry every product you need, but it's still nice to buy from somebody independent, because we all know when you're an independent person out there, like all of us on this board, we're working a lot of hours. We put the time in and effort and stuff like that. We have passion for our product and stuff. So when we see our product on the shelf, we're proud of it. When I walk into Festival or I walk into Woodman's, when I see my beer on the shelf, it makes you feel good. It's pretty cool to see it there. And it was really cool. The other day I was at Woodman's, and a gentleman was looking for Blue Bobber. So I told him where I was there setting up a display, and I told him where Blue Bobber was. What was really cool, he had a bag of frozen blueberries, which is kind of our trait. We put frozen blueberries in our beer so they bob up and down. So here the guy was, he bought blueberries. Now he was in the liquor department, and he was buying a 6-pack of Blue Bobber. He had no idea who I was. And I was just telling him where the Blue Bobber was. So it's still kind of cool to see when you walk out, it's cool to see those, those stories.
That's great. Paula, do you have a mentor relationship that's helped you along the way?
Yeah, so in the beginning, we worked with the Dairy Business Innovation Center. We didn't know anything really about cheese production, wholesaling cheese. So we worked very closely with the Dairy Business Innovation Center, which provided just information on everything from labeling, legal requirements, cheese making, connected us with cheese plants that could help us get started by producing products for us. We also worked with the Center for Dairy Research. And again, that was on recipe development, really developing our products, looking at our milk, at the types of farms we have, and then matching that with the types of cheeses that we might want to try or that might work well for us in the market. So we got a lot of support from them in the beginning. But I really echo what Tracy said. Tracy and I I don't know how long have we known each other, Tracy, but there is something about us small business owners. We get it, right? We're all trying to do some similar things. We understand the challenges of being a small producer and getting our products to the market. And it really is valuable to develop those relationships with other small business owners and use them, like you said, just to bounce ideas off or even to work out new ways of doing things. Speaking of pivoting during the pandemic, Tracy and I worked on a few things together to pivot and find new ways to just sell our products and make ends meet through the difficult year. So yeah, we've been fortunate to have a couple of different things, very good relationships with customers and fellow business owners, but also some of the more formal things like Dairy Business Innovation Center and CDR, the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board. We're lucky in the dairy state. There are many resources for dairy companies. I will tell you one thing, for example, the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board, just, speaking of pandemic, we used to be able to have buyers come to Wisconsin. We could meet them in person. And as you say, Jay, there's value to that, right? To meeting people in person. We were lucky enough sometimes to actually have buyers come out to our farms. In fact, in the Minneapolis market, that was key to establishing our brand in that market. The Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board has been able to facilitate Zoom meetings with buyers from around the country. And I can meet with people that I could not have possibly met with, had the time or the resources, the money to meet with, had I not had the support, the mentorship and the support of the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board. And in some cases, I've been able to have one of our farmers on those meetings, and that would have been just completely impossible without the support of something like the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board. So it's good.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's good to find those resources. What are your resources for your particular product and for your particular industry, and use them?
So Paula, when you invited those buyers to Wisconsin from Minnesota, did you just invite them, or did you pay for them, or how did that work?
That was through the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board. So again, using that resource that was available to us, they facilitated it, got the big Greyhound bus full of co-op buyers actually from the Minneapolis St. Paul market, and came out and met our farmers, really understood what we were talking about with the way that our farmers farm and the care that they provide for their animals. And then we had a meal on the farm, and this was facilitated by the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board, but absolutely crucial to establishing our brand in that market.
That was great. What a great story. I'm glad that happened.
So I was wondering if you guys are all really busy people running a business. I'm the same way, running a business. And we all know that work-life balance, or like putting family or other important things first, is sometimes really hard to do. Speaking from a position of experience, where you sometimes have done it, it's always an up and down whether or not you're on the ball doing it. But when you're doing it, what are some good practical tips that you can tell or share with the attendees today, so they can maybe foster some good skills? I'm gonna start with you, David.
Sure. I think my thoughts on that have always been, I come from kind of the factory floor and up. And so I think it's extremely important to have people around you that are going to take care of your business. And I think, in your absence and things like that. And I think the only way to do that is to take care of them. And so, we want to be real competitive with our wages and what we want to offer for benefits. And essentially, my model is to essentially at some point make Potters an ESOP, which would be kind of an employee-owned model. And so I always felt that it was extremely important that in the absence of the owner and this and that the place is taken care of and that you have a peace of mind. I took my first vacation right before COVID last year in Phoenix. I didn't get one phone call the entire time. And I was so blessed. I came back and was $2 raises, that just doesn't happen often, as an owner, you're always getting a phone call, no matter where you're up north or whatever. So yeah, I think it's important to take care of your employees so that they're taking care of your business and you get to enjoy some of your own time.
Yeah, I really think that's something that's missed in a lot of modern business, is employee treatment as an afterthought. But I agree with you, David, that employee treatment really makes your brand. And if you have trust in them, they will trust you, and it's like
right.
You can do things. There's
a little bit more investment on their behalf. They're not just punching the clock. They're really vested in the products they're making, and there's a lot of a pride that comes in their minds too when they're seeing the product on the shelf. That's me going back to being a baker and being in Los Angeles, and all of a sudden I see a Potter's crackers. I'm like, whoa, that I made that in Madison. That my hands probably touched that. So I understand, you know, that there's a value there as well to instilling that pride.
Yeah, it's the same with us too. Is, you know, in our company, I don't want to micromanage. We've got great team. I mean, we just celebrated our GM in Oshkosh, you know, 10 years. You know, my GM at the mall, the brewery in Appleton, she's been with from day one over 20 years. Tom's been 16 years. And we've got so many 10-year, 20-year employees and stuff like that. And I think the reason why we do it, we empower them to make decisions. I always tell them, just make a decision. There's not a decision you're going to make that's going to lock us up. It just isn't going to happen. And if it's maybe not the right decision, we'll talk about that the next day, because we know our customers, they want the answer now. They don't want to walk, they don't want you to walk away from the table and ask somebody. We always say, just empower them, make the decision, and we'll figure it out later and stuff like that. And I think that really helps us, because there's one thing I always do on my calendar. I schedule all my kids' activities. I mean, that's the one thing I don't want to miss. You know, I've got my last daughter who's playing softball at Northwestern right now, and I'm not going to miss it, because after that one, that's it for me. So when she's playing in Florida last weekend, I went and watched 6 games. So this weekend they're hosting Wisconsin, then they're going to Maryland and stuff like that. So, and my staff knows that I've got my phone on at all times. So if there's ever a call or whatever, I say, I'll take it right away. Obviously, unless she's pitching or batting, then I'll call them after that, you know, stuff. But I think for us, it's just been empowering them, letting them make decisions. And we've been fortunate. They've always, majority of the time, have made the right decision. Even, like I said, even if it's not, we figure it out the next day. And I'm a true believer of scheduling family activities, because at the end of the day, we all have to have a life. And you don't want to miss out on it, because when you have a family and you have kids and your parents and stuff like that, that's a big part of it. It's a big part of all of us growing up and stuff like that. So we really say that a lot. You know, myself, I say that a lot, but I say that to my GMs too. If they have a son that's in cross country or whatever, don't miss the meets. And, you know, usually for us, we're fortunate in our business is because a lot of those are done in the afternoon anyhow and stuff, so they can make them and attend them and then get back to work. But we're big with family. You gotta, if you have a well taken care of, everybody's getting along in the household, it makes everything else a lot easier for, you know, for work as well.
That's wonderful. So inspiring, Jay.
I would echo that too. I mean, there will be sacrifices. You know, we all know that, and you will have to work hard if you're going to be successful. But at the end of the day, you have to decide what your limits are and what's important to you. And if family is important to you, like you said, Jay, taking those steps to schedule time off, make sure that you're available for your family. And I would say too, just understand that sometimes you can work yourself into the ground and still not be successful. And then from the side, something comes that you never even asked for. You never even tried. We've had that more times with our business, you know, trusting that things are going to work out. And sometimes something will come along that will be the best, end up being the best customer that we ever had. So realize it's not always all about you and killing yourself to achieve something. I'm sorry, you cut out there.
Oh, Tracy, what about you? Any practical tips on work-life balance?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I am one that so we live on the farm, and if I have employees working, I feel like I need to be working. So I still need to learn that. And after 16 years, my husband really wishes I would have learned it a long time ago. But I'm hoping, given how horrible 2020 was, that 2021 is the year of Tracy, I keep saying. So I'm hoping to find that this year. I have some pretty amazing employees who've been with me for a while now, and some brand new ones that I see some huge potential in. So hopefully this year is, like I said, the year of me. And I actually get to buy those horses that I keep talking I'm going to buy. So.
Well, you know, and I think the cool thing about all of us is when you travel, it's, I mean, granted, we're all doing something when we travel, but it's research. I mean, for me, I walk in grocery stores, you know, food co-ops, or, you know, I'm always walking into a restaurant. Not that I'm buying something there possibly, or a bar or whatever. But there's so many cool ideas out there around the country that you can see no matter what city you're in. And we always find something to come back with an idea for our staff and stuff like that. So I think all of us do, when you walk away from, you come back, you always feel different. We just do. Your head's a little bit more clear and stuff like that. And I think you need that. But it's just, to me, it's just to freshen up the ideas. And I think that's what travel does to me, because there's so many times that when I got downtime of 2-3 hours, I just don't take downtime. I just go into town or whatever, or find a place and just see what's out there, see what somebody's selling, see what their labels look like, or what their, what it is out there. And I think I always feel when I go somewhere, I always educate myself when I come back. So for me, it's always good.
Yeah, I would definitely second that, Jay.
Yeah.
I like to double dip on my vacations and stop the cheese shops, and I mean, why not? It's kind of doesn't feel like work at that point. So
right.
It is fun to see what's out there, what the competition's doing.
Jane, do you have any work-life balance tips?
Well, like Tracy, it took me a long time to realize that how much you need it, because at first you're just really young and passionate about what you're doing, and it's so exciting, and there's always something to do. And, so there was a lot, too many years that were just filled with that, until it was really, I noticed maybe it wasn't as fun as it should be. So then I would just think of a place I wanted to go. Like one year I bought everyone a train trip. In the family, we took a train to Glacier. And this year I just called Isle Royal and said, do you have like one night in the lodge, and then we're going to go backpacking. And so I think it's just schedule something fun and then just do it. But you really do need to get away. Like I'm to the point where I could actually retire, but I really want to stick in there for a longer time. So I'm going to just really start pacing myself and get more into my teaching and writing, which I enjoy so much now. And I do, and like everybody said, it's so important to have great staff. And that has been just such a blessing to me too, to have really wonderful staff, capable people who are dedicated and have the vision. So with that, that offers you the space to expand and be, better in your position too.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing all of that. We're going to move into the Q&A. If anybody that's on this webinar has a question for this panel, you can type it in the chat. Or if a panelist has a question for another panelist, you can just speak it up right now if you want. I've been asking all the questions, so I don't think it's unfair if I ask another question. How do you know when you're going to get your first employee? Is my question. When do you make that jump from it's just me or me and my spouse or me and my family? Now I'm going to hire somebody. Can you guys share some insights on that?
Well, for me, it was just that I didn't really like making soap. So I had to hire somebody else to do that part. But I bet everyone has a different story on that.
For us on the brewery side, it was just, obviously we had to build sales, on the wholesale side. So, there again, it's like we all said, it's landing that first account that's got volume. And then that justifies you obviously to hire another person and stuff like that on. And so much of our business is, I'm sure it's like a lot of yours is too, is we do so much manual. We're not a big brewery. We don't have, all the bells and whistles and stuff like that. We got to carry stuff and, we got to haul stuff. We got to, rake out our grain, our malt and stuff like that and stuff. So as we grew, it allowed us to hire one more here, one more there. And we're like everybody else. You have to be so cautious because your margins are thin the way they are, especially with wholesale side of it and stuff like that. So, as we gain more sales and as we gain more money, obviously top line sales coming in, it allows us the staff and stuff like that. Now from the restaurant side, it was totally opposite because in 95, we jumped into a big operation. And so there it was multiple people and stuff like that. So that was I don't want to say I was a little bit more of a headache, but that was a little bit more of a headache when we started out with such a big operation right away for all of us and stuff like that. But I think like all of us on this panel today, if you're willing to work, you'll get through it. And I always tell anybody that if you're willing to put the time, the effort, and the passion, you can work through it. I mean, over time, obviously there are things you got to organize, but at the beginning of anybody starting up any business, it's just a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of work. And it never seems like you're ever getting paid enough. It takes a long time to figure out that you're really getting the money you really should. But I tell you, there's a lot of years of hard work for all of us to really, really grind before you really see that the other side of it. And even when you think you see the other side of it, you look at your competition, it makes you better. So you're always improving yourself. So even your dollars you're bringing in, you're always putting money back into it too, to keep yourself out there, keep yourself. We always say you got to be relevant. Every day we have to be relevant with something out there.
We have a question from Melissa. How often do you follow up with a buyer when you're interested in getting a product into your store? Tracy, do you want to take that one? I don't know if Tracy's here. What about you?
I can take that. My internet kicked me off again, so I'm back. I probably missed the question though.
Oh, the question is how often do you follow up with a buyer when you're interested in getting your product into a store?
Well, it kind of depends on the buyer and the size and all that. You definitely don't want to annoy people, but you kind of do as well. And there's people that have those personalities more than others, and those are what make good salespeople. And typically, if we don't hear back, we usually follow up every week or every other week. And if, we really they end up on a separate list. So if you don't hear back within a few months or whatever, you put them on a different list and call them again in 3 months or whatever. So, I mean, it kind of depends. You definitely don't want to be overly annoying, but you want to show the people that you care and that you're out there trying to sell your goods. And so I wouldn't think too much about being annoying, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you. You almost have to be a little annoying at times because you don't want to be that one phone call person or one email person and then not get back to them and they forget about you. We do exactly the same. We'll make a call and then I'll follow back up in a week or two. Then I'll follow back up again, and then when I follow back up, I always tend to remind them why I called. And for us it was because we just introduced a 19.2 ounce can and stuff like that. So we're trying to get that out there in distribution, stuff like that. So it's almost like you got to remind them that you have the product and you still have the product and you still have the product. Yeah. And so hopefully at some point they pull the trigger on you and they take it. So. Yeah, I don't want to say it. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little annoying, but I am a little bit because I think you have to be because there's so much competition out there for all of us. And I think there's a right way of doing it. I think all of us on the panel, just by listening to everybody, will do it the right way. And that's a professional way, obviously, and stuff like that.
Say too, never give up. You might repeatedly, routinely ping somebody or contact somebody and get absolutely no response for years. And then all of a sudden, 3 or 4 years later, you get an order. And, there are all kinds of reasons why you might not be getting a response now. If you put yourself in the position of somebody's trying to sell you something, sometimes you just don't need that right now, or maybe you're too busy to deal with it. You think you might need it or want it, but right at this moment, you don't have time to deal with it. Well, the same is true of your customers. You just don't always know what might be going on in their worlds. So I would encourage too, to just consistently routinely continue to contact and find reasons. It doesn't always have to be, hey, by the way, you know, you want to buy some cheddar? That kind of thing. Sometimes it can be as simple as, you know, you saw something about them on social media and you send them an email, hey, congratulations, I saw you got that award. So it's not a hard sales contact, but you made them think of you again, and you made them think of your products. And so sometimes it can be a softer approach to maintaining contact and really maintaining those relationships with the hope of eventually making that sale.
I know in my situation, I have to always laugh. I appreciate people selling more now than I ever did. So as you can imagine, being in my business for years, we didn't wholesale. So I had everybody coming to me always. And then all of a sudden, you know, now it flips, you know, now I'm out there selling. So now every time a salesman comes in, I look at them different because I know how hard it is when you go out there. Sometimes you'll be standing in the aisle waiting for a half an hour before somebody finally comes out by you and stuff like that. And so yeah, it's wide. It opens your eyes up a little bit on how at some point, I don't want to say you're treated, but how long you wait sometimes for somebody to come out there and talk to you and stuff like that. But we always say, if you're going to be a good salesperson, you have to be persistent.
And I would say too, never devalue somebody. You know, if you're trying, let's say you're in a grocery store trying to sell, remember that every person in that grocery store is important. The person sweeping the floor, they might be, I mean, who knows? They might be the future, you know, cheese manager. I don't know. But just seeing the value of people, and always, no matter who it is in that organization that you're trying to sell to, treat them well, because you don't know how that will play itself out in your sales efforts.
Yeah, and I think it's important, if you don't, you know, if you're worried about wasting time or where you should be spending your time. I know a lot of stores do have category review schedules, and those are easily obtained by just asking one of the purchasing managers. And so, I mean, buyers are extremely busy, and on top of that, they have quite a bit of turnover or restructuring. So you're not always talking to the same person, even within 2 to 4 months. Sometimes you're lucky enough to talk to the same person for 10 years, but a lot of the stores that are a little, you know, higher end or whatever will have their category review schedules available. Those are the times that when your category's up, that's when they want to taste it. And that's when you'll have the most success in terms of feedback and getting a direct answer.
Yeah, I agree. And I think so many of them right now are so stretched because there's so many different new items coming out. I mean, especially like for all of us, the big manufacturers, I mean, they're constantly coming out with stuff obviously to compete against us. You know, and I look in our segment, you know, all of a sudden seltzer. I mean, seltzer, you know, 3-4 years ago, you didn't hardly see seltzer. Now all of a sudden seltzer is a huge category, so it's taking up a lot of shelf space. Now you got the major spirits guy, they're coming out with canned cocktails and things like that. So, I mean, the hardest part for all of us is to keep our shelf space right now. Because there's so much new stuff, because the stores aren't getting any business, you know, they're not getting any bigger and stuff. So we have to make sure we keep ourselves unique enough to, you know, to the market, to the person purchasing, because there's a lot of competition out there that's coming.
I think too, just making sure that you do what you can to make it easy for the buyer. You know, for example, it's much easier for you to give the buyer a catalog and let the buyer know that you've got everything set. You've got maybe the marketing support, you've got your labels set, you know, everything that it takes for them to put the product on the shelf. That work has been done, rather than sort of just talking, you know, a phone call or an ambiguous email. They don't have time to deal with that. They need the information that's necessary for getting your product set up in their store, and they need that easily accessible so it can happen quickly without a lot of effort on their part.
I think one thing too, I mean, all these are great comments, but the one thing too that I learned is when a buyer says no, it's no, and don't push it. So, I mean, definitely keep following up if you haven't gotten a response, but if you get a no, move on.
Right. I agree with that. I think that's the best approach, you know, to a lot of things because you'll see it come around in different ways on a bigger scale. Like, for instance, an example we had this year, we were in the category review for Murray's Cheese Shop out in New York, a pretty big cheese shop. And actually, Kroger or Roundy's just bought them. Well, Murray's turned us down. We moved on, but then 2 weeks later, landed 99 new Roundy's accounts that are installing Murray's Cheese Shops within their stores in Illinois and Wisconsin. So we ended up in Murray's anyway in a roundabout way because we just moved on and, you know, let them go. There's a lot of people out there to sell to, way more than you can ever imagine. And it's not worth kind of just hounding or even getting upset about it. Just move on and let it play out a different way, you know.
Thank you guys for the thoughtful responses on that. We have 2 minutes left and one last question. There is, sorry, I just minimized it. Somebody who represents Westby Co-op Creamery, and they're trying to extend their distribution outside of Wisconsin. What's the first steps for finding distributors to partner with outside of your immediate area?
Well, depending on the scale, I would definitely look for someone that specializes in dairy or something similar to what you're selling instead of going right to like a KeHE or one of the big ones. You know, we've been very weary of distributors over the years and have found basically the ones we're most successful with are the ones that specialize in charcuterie and meat, cheese, not so much ones that'll deliver you everything from a soup mix to napkins to whatever. So find that right relationship and make sure the margin works for you because, yeah, the distributor world is a very tight margin.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Well, I think this is a great panel discussion. Thank you all for taking the time to be on this panel. And if anybody attending has any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me or put it in the chat and we can get the questions to the panelists here. So thank you very much. And we're going to be going to our first break. And hopefully if the tech works out, we'll have a yoga session.
Great, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. It was nice to meet everyone this morning. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Nice meeting you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Tracy and Jeffrey, I'm not seeing, is it Kat? I'm not seeing
I don't see her either
on the participants list here yet.
Oh. I'm not either. Hold on a minute.
It looks like most everyone is on taking a break anyway, so that's okay.
Okay, let me see where she is. Hold on.
Oh, I see. Hi, Kat.
There she is.
There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Okay, good. I have these nifty little earbuds that make things a whole lot clearer. So I just want to make sure y'all can hear me. Okay. All right. How's it been going so far?
I think it's gone really well.
Good. welcome to Oshkosh, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Thanks for
All right.
doing some chair yoga with us. I'm going to sit down. I have to sit down, right?
You can stand.
Oh, great.
All right. Okay, so first of all, I just want to say thank you for taking some time out to sort of clear your mind and give yourself an opportunity to process all this information. It's a real honor to share this practice with you guys and to be part of this day. So thank you so much for being here. We're going to go through like a 15-minute meditation to just help clear the slate, help you process all the information, and give you a little boost of energy before you go back into learning. So with meditation, I like to make it a sensory experience. So if you have an oil or a candle or something like that, you can go ahead and grab that. If you have like a lemon or a flower or even a plant, or take a minute to open a window, anything like that to sort of just give you a sensory experience. And then if you have some water, go ahead and drink some water. Cup of tea, coffee, whatever you need. I'm just going to hang out here for just a few more minutes before we get started. So I'd like for you to sit as comfortably as possible. If you can sit up a little bit, maybe even on a pillow or a block or a blanket. You can stand up, stretch your legs, stretch your arms over your head, and just kind of wake up the rest of your body besides your mind. And then allow yourself to become centered and settled. So feel your body connected to whatever you're sitting on. If you have your feet on the floor, feel your feet on the floor, maybe even take off your shoes so you can spread your toes out a little bit. And then I'd like for you to just simply close your eyes and take a deep breath and go inward. And take notice of your current reality, how you're feeling, the speed of your thoughts, your stress level. And without trying to change anything, simply be aware and accepting of what is currently happening. There is no wrong or even right way to meditate. It's simply a practice that is unique to each person. We're all going to experience this a little bit differently. But the idea is to go from the external experience to an internal experience, whereby we clear and create space and allow, so that the information that is most needed for you today has room to filter in, and any distractions are just to kind of put to the side so that you can focus and be present and do what you came here to do, and then take that information, bring it to the community and anything else that you're creating here today. Allow it to ripple out from there. So once again, take a deep breath and go inward. Allow your breath to be a little bit deeper. So you're breathing not just in the area of your lungs and your chest, but through your entire body. So you can feel the breath moving all the way up to the very top of your head and then all the way down, allowing the shoulders to relax, the hips and the knees and the feet to relax. And in that relaxed feeling, also create a sense of expansion. So the inhale creates light and space, and the exhale allows you to release and let go. And if you feel yourself fidgeting or wanting to move, know that that's totally okay. Your body can be moving, your mind can be active, but you can still be aware of a quiet and still place within that is unaffected by everything around. And some of us are better suited to meditation while moving. So if that's you, feel free. I'm quite active most of the time, so I like to sit, be still, but that's just me. So again, take a deep breath and go inward. I'd like for you to bring your attention to sort of the space between your eyebrows. In yoga meditation, we call this the third eye, the sixth chakra. See if you can soften your brow. And then I'd like for you to take your hands and just kind of gently bring your fingertips across your forehead, just to get a sense of touch to that area. And then you can just gently release. Just take a moment to feel those sensations. Take a deep breath and go inward. Great. So if you need to move a little bit, move. And then I'd like to invite you to wherever you are, just stop, sit, pause, feel your feet or seat connected to the ground or your chair. And then see if you can lift and lengthen the spine. Feel the heart expand with the breath. So not only forward, but also back and to the sides. And see if you can lift up a little bit more through the crown of the head. And then just take your right hand and find that space between the eyebrows again and just gently lift up. Okay, just a very gentle lift. You can keep your finger there, 1 or 2 fingers, 3 if you need. And I'll lift that space. Imagine your mind becoming clear, like crystal, still, peaceful. Take a deep breath and go inward. And then you can keep your hand there if you'd like, or you can rest your hand back. Take a deep breath and go inward. Breathe deeply and consistently so there's an equality to your inhalation and your exhalation. If you need a little extra energy, a little boost, allow your inhales to be slightly more expansive than your exhales. And if you'd like to relieve some stress, to let go a little, allow your exhales to be slightly longer than your inhales. And if you're able and willing, create a little space between the inhale and exhale. So as you breathe in, pause. Find that still place within, go inward, and then exhale. And at the bottom of your exhale, do the same. Just pause a little. We're training our minds and our bodies to not be reactive, but responsive. Please take 3 deep breaths with me. Breathing in, pausing at the top of your inhale, and exhaling out. Exhale a little bit more, and invite the breath back in. Exhale and let it go. And one more deep breath to go inward. And then begin to return to your senses a little bit. So starting with sensation, I'd like for you to keep the length of your spine. Just drop your chin. Turn your chin from the right to the left, stretching the back of the neck. Maybe circle your head around. And begin to feel the sensation of clothing on your skin. Begin to open your ears to the world around you. And then finally, let your eyes open. And notice how you feel. And just remember that at any time during the day, you can take a deep breath and go inward. You can do this with your eyes open. And whenever you need to take a different point of view, you can also keep in mind the mantra, I am in flow. So with that, please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here, to be part of your day. I hope this time and this practice served you well. Thank you all so much for being here. Bye. Namaste.
All right, as we're all coming back, getting ready for Megan Minnick from Willy Street to present. Just want to thank you all again for being here and supporting the local movement and the Oshkosh Food Co-op.
Would you like me to go ahead and share my screen and get going, or?
Yeah, is that Megan?
This is Megan, yes.
Yeah, you're now the host.
Turn my video on. All right.
Well, can I ask you how your morning's going?
My morning, it's going all right. Believe it or not, this is the first time I've ever presented to a Zoom meeting, so let's hope I can do it right.
Welcome to 2021.
Yeah, well, we use Google. I am very proficient at Google, so.
It's pretty much the same thing, Megan. You'll be fine.
All right. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Tracy. Okay.
You'll do great.
Just get it to the right screen. Well, you guys are also relaxed now, so this is perfect. All right. Can everyone see the presentation there?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I am, as has been said, Megan. It's nice to see you all digitally here. I am from Willy Street Co-op, which is in Madison. I would imagine that a lot of you are familiar with Willy Street, but I can go over a quick little rundown about us. So we have 3 retail co-ops or grocery stores in the Madison area, 2 in Madison proper, 1 in Middleton. Combined, we have about 35,000 owners, which I think makes us, maybe other than PCC on the West Coast, makes us a co-op with the most owners in the US. So we do have quite a few people who shop at our stores from the Madison area. And we have over $55 million in annual sales. We were hoping to get to 60 this year, but with COVID, it doesn't look like that's happening, unfortunately. So we still say over 55 million. And about a third of those sales are of local products, give or take on different years, but it usually adds up to about a third. We've been around since the 1974. I don't think that's on this slide, but we have been around for a long time. So, you know, I know for new co-ops, those kind of numbers can look pretty daunting, but it certainly has taken us a long time to get here. So today, going to talk about becoming a vendor. I work with, so I'm the purchasing director at Willy Street Co-op, and I work with, responsible for all of our vendor relations. So that would be local vendors and non-local. But over the years, I have worked with numerous local vendors in kind of all stages of getting their business set up. We do work with people, you know, who are everywhere from, you know, really huge vendors, both locally and not, to people who are just getting off the ground and don't know what a UPC is. And, you know, we're very familiar with coaching people through that process. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the things that have stood out to me over the years, and then we should have lots of time for questions too, if anybody has questions along the way. So, you want to be a vendor. The most of this presentation is actually not going to be about actually talking to the co-op. It's about all of the homework that needs to be done or should be done before you even approach anybody at a retail store or a cooperative grocery store. So the first thing that really is important when looking at a new food business is really just doing your research and being very familiar with what sets your product apart. So this is kind of like preparing your elevator speech, right? Like, what is it about your product that should make a retail buyer interested in even considering it? You should be very well versed in what that is. So that includes things, and we'll go through each of these in detail, like, you know, the type of product it is, what ingredients are in it, what's your pricing strategy, what does your packaging and branding look like, and then what kind of may set your company itself apart. So the first is, you know, and this is probably the most important, is really knowing what about your product sets it apart from the marketplace. And this means doing a lot of research to try to figure out, you know, who are your competitors, both local and not local, and why is your product different? Why would somebody want to buy it compared to something else they see on the shelf? One thing that is really, I think, different from, say, a farmer's market environment to a retail environment is that in a retail, you're not there. It's just your product on a shelf next to a bunch of other products that are kind of similar. So it really, you know, getting really versed on what is it that's setting your product apart, and how does a customer know that from just walking into the store and looking at that product on the shelf without you behind it to explain to them why it's so special. These are a few products that have come up for us in the last few years that kind of, to me, were great examples of companies that have done this. I think a lot of you will recognize the Olden Organics Zoodles there. That's a great example of you know, when Dick and Tracy first came to us with their veggie noodles, you know, we get new farmers trying to come sell us things all the time, but this was different. They actually did their market research. They figured out, you know, everybody can grow zucchini, everybody can sell zucchini, but what can we do to really make our zucchini different from the rest? And so they turned it into noodles, and that was a completely unique local product that we'd never seen before, and was really a no-brainer for us to put on the shelf. The rest of these, so the one on the bottom there is a gentleman from our area who makes canola. He grows canola and presses it. And that was a niche that had not been filled at all. And he is able to market it as a more healthful canola oil because of the way he processes it. And he has done a really great job of not only, you know, putting the local out there, but also really expressing to customers what the difference is between his canola oil and everybody else's more industrially produced canola. Tortilla Zepeda is another great example. It's a couple that just launched their tortilla business in the last year. He's from Mexico. She's actually the farmer of a grass-fed dairy farm in Wisconsin, and they started this fresh tortilla business in Madison. Believe it or not, there really weren't any fresh tortillas made in Madison up until then. And they did a really great job, again, of doing their research, figuring out what was it about their tortillas that made them different. And we can't keep them on the shelf, actually, at this point. And again, it was a no-brainer for us because there was no other company filling that niche. And then Madame Chu is another one. That little tiny, it's a little tiny jar of her sambal, and it goes for like $9, which we at first thought was crazy. And then we tasted it and we talked to her, and you know, again, it's a completely unique product. Nobody else is making it. There's so much flavor in that tiny little jar that it's crazy. And she has done a really great job of just marketing it as what it is, a really unique product. So those are kind of some examples of people who have really gotten that down pretty well. The next thing is, you know, really thinking about what's your ingredient standards, what about your product and the ingredients you're using might set it apart. And there's a lot of kind of, you know, trendy buzzwords in here: fresh, organic, fair trade, locally sourced. Is it grass-fed, pastured, or certified humane? Less processed is not something that's, you know, some of these are not necessarily official terms, natural, less processed, but there's still things that you can call out that might make a consumer or a retail buyer understand what's different about your product. Non-GMO, another one. Are the ingredients non-GMO? And then, you know, do you cater to any special diets, or is your product vegan? Is it raw? Is it paleo? Is it gluten-free? You know, some people have gone a little too far with some of those terms. I think I've seen people trying to market like bottled water as gluten-free or vegan, which seems a little silly. So I would recommend against going that far. But, you know, if you do have a product that could reasonably be marketed as gluten-free or vegan, it's a good idea to to put that out there. I guess I can say too about some of these labels, you know, some do require a certification like the USDA organic certification, that fair trade certification there. If you had fair trade label, ingredients in your product, you would want to make sure that they were certified fair trade. And certified humane is another one. So making sure that if you are making those claims, that they are backed up with the correct certification is also important. Some of them don't require certification, like, you know, less processed, natural. Local doesn't require any kind of official certification, but do make sure, you know, that if you're going to use these terms, that they are backed up by something. And I guess one to call out there especially is gluten-free, because that is one that people who are celiac do look for. And if you are calling it gluten-free, it better well be gluten-free, because otherwise, obviously, you could probably hurt someone. So pricing is the next thing to think about. What will the market bear? This is something that we work with small vendors who are kind of getting into retail for the first time a lot with. Oftentimes people will approach us and we'll ask what their wholesale price is, and they'll tell us what they're charging customers at the farmer's market. And it's very important to know that those are two totally different things. You really can't charge a retail what you're charging directly to consumers and expect to really sell much out of that retail. Because we have to put, I mean, generally for most products, it's about a 25 to a 30 or 40% margin, depending on the product, on top of that cost that we're paying you. So, you know, if customers are used to buying something at the farmer's market and then all of a sudden they're paying 30 to 40% more in the grocery store, that's going to reflect badly, not only on the grocery store, but also on your product, and could make it look overpriced. So really figuring out what is your wholesale strategy. Studies have shown that people are willing generally to pay about 10% more for local foods, and the fresher the product, the higher the premium they're willing to pay. So, you know, if you're making something like a locally produced ketchup, for instance, it's in a bottle, it's right next to Heinz on the shelf, people are not going to be willing to pay much more than that 10% extra, because people's conception of what ketchup is worth is pretty stable and pretty low. And, you know, high quality ketchup is really only local ketchup is only going to really get people to want to pay so much more. But if on the flip side of that, if you're doing something like fresh bread, you know, if you're creating an artisan fresh baguette that's completely different than anything else on the shelf, you know, people are probably willing to pay more than that 10% because of the perception of freshness that comes with that bread, if that makes sense. And then again, so just the difference in wholesale and retail pricing is really important to understand that going into that conversation with a retail buyer. Understanding the difference between margin and markup. Those are two kind of different concepts. Which is funny because I usually explain this in person. I've never tried to explain it virtually. So markup is essentially, you know, if you take $100 and you mark them up 20%, you have $120, right? Margin is kind of a more complex concept, but it is what grocery stores and retailers use to determine our pricing. So if I sell something for $10, I have my cost of goods, right? So say my cost of goods is $6. I'm paying you, my vendor, $6 for that product, but I'm charging $10 on the shelf. That $4 that's on top of my cost of goods is what's considered my margin. So it's not that I'm adding 40%. I'm actually looking at what is my retail, what percentage of my retail price is the cost that I'm paying to you, the vendor, and then what percentage is my profit. And that's what my margin is. So it's a different calculation to come to pricing. And it's just, I think, good for vendors to know going in that that's how we look at it. And when retailers talk about margin, it is not the same as what a markup might be. And then just to know that margins vary by category. In a grocery store, you know, we have everything from, in our dairy department, we sell butter at a 10% margin, or sometimes even less. Butter and milk are very low margin items. But then if you go over and you look at our supplements and some of our houseware products, those we actually add more like a 60% margin. And that's just all based on where those industries lie and what the standard margins are for those specific categories of goods. So it's really good to do some research and figure out for your product, what is kind of that standard margin. And that can help you get to what your wholesale price might be. Because then you'll know, you know, at least have an idea of what a grocery store might be tacking on to get to that retail price for consumers. The next thing to think about is packaging, and this is really important. You know, like I was saying, you know, it's not like a farmer's market in this grocery store where you're standing by the product to really explain it to everybody who comes by and tell everybody who happens to you know, look at your product on the shelf what's so amazing about it. It's really your packaging that has to do that. Because if you don't have packaging that stands out, it doesn't matter how great the product is inside. If customers don't know it, they won't buy it, especially if it costs more than something else that's next to it, which is pretty typical for most local products. These are some of my kind of favorite examples of packaging from some of our local vendors. Vitruvian Farms on the top there. Really understood, you know, in our produce departments, we use these self-facing units, the plastic self-facers, and most local greens up until Vitruvian came along were still packaging themselves in bags, which just don't work well in these self-facers and are really hard to make look good on the shelf. So Vitruvian asked if we'd be interested if they moved to the clamshells, which are very similar to what the bigger players like Earthbound use. And we said, yeah, you know, and then we were able to put them in these self-facers. We put them right next to the Earthbound product. And the Vitruvian is able to really shine a little bit better than they would if they were kind of stuck on a bag on the top shelf. And their sales have done really well compared to that more typical bagged salad mix. And yes, they cost more money. But when you look at how much they're selling compared to what they'd be selling from a bag, I think it has proved to be very much worth it for them and us. And then down on the bottom there, so Yum Butter several years ago came out with these new squeeze packs, just allow you to squeeze the peanut butter right into your mouth, which people really like. But that packaging, you know, came with some issue that if, you know, we tried to put all these little squeezy packs right on our shelf, they would all just fall over domino style and wouldn't have worked. So what they do is provide us with those kind of cardboard caddies that you can see that they're in. So the top actually, you know, peels off, and then we can put that cardboard right on the shelf, and it keeps them all neat and tidy and looking nice on our shelf. Had they not done that part of it, I think those squeeze packs would have been a failure, because there's just no way to nicely display them without that extra packaging that they include with it. Next to them, so American Provenance is a men's, mostly they do deodorant, but other body care items. And they have always struck to me as a really nice job of their packaging and really showing their branding on their packaging. They actually hired a local tattoo artist to do all of their artwork, which was really great because it really kind of, I think, appeals to the demographic that they're looking for. And I think they are one of the only local body care companies that is now in in national distribution. They've been extremely successful, and I think their packaging is, and just how beautiful it is and on brand for them has really set them apart. And then last up there, so the Naked Baker is a new vendor for us. And she, you know, has these 4 or 5 packs of cookies, which I always just like to show as an example of, you know, why sell 1 cookie when you could sell 4 or 5 cookies? and her cookies are so good, it's easy to eat that many. So, you know, looking at how, you know, how many are in a package, what kind of is the correct size, and can we get people to buy just a little bit more by putting something in a package and making it look nice. The Naked Baker is also a gluten-free product, so she has really done a good job of using that as a differentiator. And then the last thing to think about when thinking about, what sets your product as apart is what sets your company apart. And are there things about what you're doing that are worth talking about? And increasingly, a lot of studies and in our stores, we found that consumers really want to know not just about how delicious your product is or what's in it, but they also want to know about the reputation of the company who makes it. And are you giving back to your community, or, what are you doing to be a responsible company? Some people go as far as being a certified B Corp. That's kind of the way to get certified in this kind of a thing. But then, there's other companies that have just made a deal about the things that they're doing. So Off the Block Salsa, for example, is actually a local nonprofit. They do frozen pizzas and salsas. Kids from the inner city in Madison are part of this, and it gives them work experience to make these products. They're really well known, and their products are very expensive. I'm talking like $12 for a little frozen pizza, but they sell really well because people know their mission, they know what they do, they're really well known, and people want to support it, so they buy their pizzas. Yum Butter is another one. They have a buy one, feed one program. So you buy one of their products and they feed a child. Just Coffee Co-op originally actually delivered their coffee on a bicycle, which made them really well known in Madison because people would see them delivering. And it, just kind of shows off their commitment to sustainability and whatnot. And then I think Organic Valley on the larger scale is a really great example of a company who has done a good job of putting their mission forward, and they really do show off their small farmers in all of their marketing, and make sure that message is central to their brand. And I think that's been really successful for them, especially when you compare it to some of the other organic dairy, kind of large dairy conglomerates out there. All right, so after you kind of have an idea of what sets your product apart, it's time to start thinking about the boring part here. And that's stuff like communication, licensing, net terms, minimum orders, credit policies, UPCs that work. That's something that is very important. To even test those UPCs out if you're printing them on a home printer. Sometimes those won't work in a grocery store setting. Let's see, I should also talk about net terms. So net terms is something that sometimes new vendors aren't familiar with. It's essentially how much time do you need between when you invoice us and when we pay you. Typically for a business, a co-op or a business our size, a smaller grocery store, you're probably looking at 30-day net terms is pretty standard. There are some grocers who really try to get that even to a longer period of time. As a co-op, Willy Street is really committed to working with our small vendors. So we actually do go down to 2 weeks or less if people need that for their cash flow. But I think outside of the co-op world, that's pretty rare. So that's something that you would have to talk to the Oshkosh co-op or whatever food retailer you're working with to see what is acceptable and figure out what works for you. When do you need that cash? Let's see. How are you going to take orders and deliveries is important. Thinking about, is that going to be emailed, or do you want people to give you a phone call? Really just being sure about how you want that ordering process to look. What are your minimum orders? And I think when looking at minimum orders, be realistic. Like, what do you really need to get in terms of an order to make it worth it for your business to deliver to that store? So is that $250? Is that 5 cases? Whatever that looks like for you, thinking that through and figuring it out is important. And then let's see, professional invoices and price sheets. So sometimes I think, we'll get these little teeny tiny invoices that are scratched out in handwriting we can't read on a little tiny piece of paper. And those are way too easy to lose. So it's not only for our convenience, but for yours, to make sure that you have figured out how to get an invoice that's a full sheet of paper, typewritten, so that everybody can read it. And that just ensures that you'll get yourself paid, and that we will easily pay you, which is important. Let's see, the other thing I should talk about here. So credit policy. That is, you know, sometimes going in, I think people like to think that nothing could ever go wrong with your product, but something could go wrong with your product, even if it's not your fault. You know, somebody could drop the box and a glass jar could break, or, you know, there's all sorts of things. So knowing what is your credit policy. So what, if we find that there's something that's not quite right, how do we contact you? What's your policy for giving us a credit on that? And just making sure that you have that written out is a really great idea, so that everybody is super clear. It just really prevents any kind of friction that could happen along the way if something happens that needs credit. Let's see. Another thing to think about is what kind of marketing support are you going to offer your product. Pre-COVID, this looked a lot different than it does now. We're still in a position where we can't offer vendors the opportunity to come in and sample their product in the store. I would think within the next year that should change, and we'll go back, because I think that's a very important tool that you have as a vendor for selling your product. Are those times when you can come into the store, set up a table, and talk to the customers. It's never going to be as important as something like your packaging on the shelf, because you're never going to be there all the time. But I think it is a really great thing to do if you can, to go in and sample your product. And it's not only giving that to the customers and kind of turning those specific customers onto your product, but it's also the opportunity for you to get feedback from those customers about what they think about your product. And that's feedback that is super important, and you can use in any number of ways. So I really think of that as like a two-way street, not just you selling to them, but getting that feedback back from them. Other things that you can think about beyond in-store sampling would be product samples and free fill. So this is something oftentimes we see larger vendors do, but many times we are offered free product. So, hey, if you decide to carry this, we'll get you 2 cases for free. You can fill your shelf for free, see how it does. And, you know, if it doesn't sell, then obviously you don't have to carry it, but it's kind of giving you the opportunity as a retailer to try it out and see risk-free. So if it's something that you feel like you could support, that's definitely a nice thing from a retailer's perspective. And certainly offering product samples when you're pitching that product. Definitely have to be ready to do that, and not expect to have them back, because if you give a product sample, we're going to want to test it out. And that means we probably won't be able to return it to you. Promotional pricing. This is something that's important to think about when you are even working out what your regular pricing is going to be. We always tell people that it's probably not the best idea to make your regular price as cheap as you possibly can make it, because it's great to leave in a little bit of wiggle room so that you can offer some promotional pricing. So even if that's, you know, 10% off for a week, so that we can we'll match that 10% and run a 20% off sale to customers. Oftentimes, I know for myself as a shopper, and I know for many of our customers, that's when we try new products. Having that little sale side next to it is a really great incentive to try something you've never tried, especially if it is a little more expensive than what you're used to. So really trying to look at how can you get your product on promo is something I think that I wish local vendors did more of. It's not as common as I wish it would be. And oftentimes the vast majority of our promotions are all on non-local product because it's just so common when you get to the larger distributors and manufacturers. Websites and social media, I would say, are increasingly necessary these days. Having a good Facebook account, Instagram, and really using your networks to help build that. You know, we often will share posts that our vendors make, or our vendors will share posts that we make. And you can really, if you work together with others, you know, you can really amplify your message that way. Printed material, conversely, I'd say is less important than it used to be, especially with COVID. People are much less likely to pick up a brochure or even stop in the store and read a sign. We have found even before COVID that signs, signs are great, but there's just nobody goes to a grocery store to read a bunch of signs. They usually ignore them. However, some people read them if it's a good sign. But with COVID, people are even more likely to just walk into the store, try to get out as quickly as possible, and having them stop to read a sign or pick up a brochure is usually not going to happen. And we'll see how that shifts in the next year. Cross promotion with other businesses. So the picture here is actually one of our very favorite demos, samplings that we do regularly or did do, which was Just Coffee Cooperative. So a local coffee roaster and Sassy Cow Creamery, who make ice cream, would team up and they would do the affogato hour. So you get, your espresso over top some ice cream. And that was always, one of our absolute favorites. Oftentimes Sassy would bring like their seasonal flavor and make it kind of a, pumpkin ice cream or whatever, make it kind of an event. And that was always so nice to see those two local vendors working together. It really, again, just amplified both of their messages. And even this photo, I think I took from our social media, but Sassy Cow shared it on their social media. Just Coffee put it on their social media, and we were all three of us, the retailer and the two food manufacturers, were able to get more out of that event than anybody would have if it was just, one of those organizations. And then lastly, expos and community events, and that's just really where you get your branding out there, and you get consumers to know your product, so that when they do come into the store and they see you on the shelf, they recognize that product and know a little bit about the story behind it. So the next thing to think about is really, before you approach a retailer, and this might seem like you're putting the cart before the horse, is really to figure out, what are you in this for? What do you want to just stay a little local company? Would you like to be, bought out by Kraft someday and make have national distribution and be a big player? Are you interested in going into distribution? Someday, would you like to work with a co-packer and stop making your product altogether? Or do you really want to keep control and keep it smaller? So I think really just having a good sense of where you want to go is important, because it will affect the decisions you make even when you're just started. One of the companies I always think about is 100 Mile Sauce Company. And, if you want to stay within that 100 miles, calling yourself 100 Mile Sauce Company is fine. But if you want national distribution, maybe don't name yourself something that is so specific to one local geographic area. So really just kind of thinking about what that looks like and how your ultimate vision for where you want your company to be will affect the decisions that you're making. When you're just starting out, I think is important. Okay, so you've done all that homework. You have all that stuff figured out. It's time to actually approach the co-op or the retailer. So I just have a quick list of do's and don'ts, and these are all based on my personal experience and experiences that I've had over the years. So do remember that timing is everything. I would very much recommend never talking to a retailer in November or December, and maybe even in October, because the holidays are so crazy. Nobody's going to want to talk to you. So really kind of timing out, when do you want to approach? What works for your product? Another example would be, if you're selling ice cream, don't probably come talk to me in September when summer is just going to be over and people aren't really thinking about ice cream anymore. It'd be more likely that I'd bring your product in if you talk to me, say, like right now, where we're headed into that summer season, and I feel like I have some room to really promote and sell your product in the coming season. So just think about what you're selling and the timing and how that might affect it. Making sure the co-op is a good fit for your product. you know, I know for our stores, you know, we are very natural, organic, local focused. So you could have the best local product, you know, and if you really don't have that focus, I'd have much less of a chance of wanting to bring it in. But there may be another store that you could approach that would be a better fit. You know, maybe there's another small local grocer who doesn't have that focus or has a little bit different clientele who would be more interested in your product. So just kind of doing that research ahead of time is a great idea. Taking the time to find the right person to contact. For us, you know, we have a team of people who are dedicated to vetting vendors. And, you know, oftentimes vendors will come into the stores and talk to just whoever's stocking groceries, and that person doesn't necessarily, you know, they certainly don't have decision-making authority. Sometimes they don't even know quite how to pass the information on. So making sure that you don't just walk in and do a cold call, but you do a little bit of work ahead of time to figure out that the person you're talking to and handing your samples off to is the right person, and the person who can make that decision and help you with what you're looking for. Trying multiple approaches. You know, some of us really like email, some of us really like phone calls. So if one doesn't work, some people might even like cold calls. I do not, and I don't think most of us do. But if one of those tactics doesn't work, you know, it's good to try another, and don't necessarily just give up if you don't hear back from one communication or another, because everybody's a little bit different in what they like. Being open to feedback. You know, I think it's so often, like, especially for new vendors starting out, it's like, this is your baby, and it's sometimes really hard, I think, for people to hear any feedback that might be given. I know for us, when we give feedback, we are very careful to make sure that it is constructive and, you know, respecting that this is your baby, and we don't, you know, we're not just going to trash it, but we also sometimes there's like little things like, hey, if you just, you know, would you consider changing this about your packaging? Or, you know, maybe if this was a 12 count case rather than an 8 count case, it might work better for us for some reason. And just being open to that, and knowing that there may be a few tweaks and changes that might really take what you're offering from either a no or a maybe to a definite yes. Good seller. Again, offering samples. I think I talked about that before. Be patient. Sometimes things take time, especially, you know, if a co-op is in a situation where they're opening a new store, or like I said, the holidays or whatever. Sometimes things can take much longer than we all might like them to. So it's kind of that art of, I guess the next one is being persistent. So, you know, pushing just hard enough, but not too hard, and really trying to be cognizant of, you know, what is that balance of being patient and making sure you keep your products on top of mind for the buyers, but then also, as it says in the bottom one, taking no for an answer. So if it really does come down to, you know, the answer is no, we can't sell this right now, that is the answer. And so I guess, yeah, just really balancing those last three, being patient, being persistent, but also just taking no for an answer. It's kind of an art form to get all those quite right, but definitely something to keep in mind as you're having that conversation with the buyer. Don'ts. Don't make cold calls. I don't know anybody who likes cold calls. That person might be out there, but it's definitely something, putting somebody on the spot, especially with a new product, can be very uncomfortable. And I think it's much better to either schedule the time or work through email, or something like that, where you're really giving that buyer more of a heads up. I think you have a much better chance of starting a good relationship that way. Don't go around the person in authority. So if you know who it is who's making that decision about carrying your product, and they say no, don't then go ask someone else at the same organization. That's a surefire way to get yourself out of anyone's good graces. Don't be pushy or rude. Don't be long-winded. Oftentimes, again, it's your baby. There's a lot to say about your product, but an email that takes me, you know, 25 or 30 minutes to read is probably not going to get read. So really trying to be concise, and get your message across in as concise a fashion as possible, I think is really important, to get noticed, and if you really want to be, like I said, if you want me to read that email. Don't expect an answer overnight. Again, that kind of being patient thing. Don't make promises you can't keep. This is really important. You know, everything from like your pricing to your minimum. It's very common for people, I really want to get into this store, so I'm going to, you know, make my minimum really low and I'm going to make my price really low. And that's, you know, how eventually you might put yourself out of business. So you're really making sure that you're cognizant of the promises that you keep, the things that you offer, that they're sustainable for your business, because if they're not, it's not going to work in the long term. And certainly as a co-op, you know, our goal and our mission is to help you be successful. It's not to kind of wring you for all your worth and try to get the lowest price. And because again, like I said, that's how you'll go out of business eventually, and that's not in anyone's interest. And don't burn bridges. You know, if the answer is no today, it might be yes in the future. We have, you know, instances where, like for local chocolate is a great example. We can't have as many vendors on our shelf for high-end local chocolate as there is high-end local chocolate in this area. There's a lot of it. It's really great, but we really can't sustain 10 different brands in that category. We just don't have the shelf space. We don't have the sales. But, you know, we have definitely had instances where, oh, this one local chocolate is going out of business, or they're moving, or whatever. We're not going to be able to offer that anymore. Who else is out there? You know, oh, there's this company we said no to 2 years ago, but they're really great. Let's bring them in. You know, so it's really making sure that you know, if we say no, that you don't then just turn around and, you know, badmouth us on social media or something like that. But keeping that communication line open could certainly prove advantageous in the future. And I think that's really important, because if you do badmouth, you know, us or somebody else on Facebook, your chances of ever coming into their store are very low. So at the end here, so once your products are on the shelf, you know, you still, there's really still a lot to think about. And especially for co-ops, this is why I love co-ops, is that relationship that we are able to maintain with our local vendors is really awesome. And it's something that really works to the benefit of both the cooperative and the vendor. But it's definitely, you know, like any relationship, it still takes work. So, you know, following through on your commitments. What are those things you committed to that you weren't over-promising, but you knew you could do? Making sure that you follow through. And that's as simple as, like, you know, I'm going to be there at 8 o'clock with my delivery, and get there at 8 o'clock. And if you're not, for some reason, give us a call and tell us that you won't be there, because we're expecting you. You know, this, yeah, it's simple as that. Being an excellent communicator, it's always better to over communicate than under communicate in my book. Not that it has to be a 30-minute long email, but again, like, oh, I'm going to be late, or you know, I don't know, I'm delivering these pears, just so you know, they have a little bit of scab on them. Here's what that's about. You know, just telling us that kind of thing ahead of time, rather than waiting until we ask you for credit, or we, you know, run into trouble and have to follow up with you. If you ever, I guess I would just say the rule, if you ever wonder if you should communicate something, do, just because it can't hurt. Being punctual and polite to buyers and receiving staff. So those are the people in the store who you're going to be, you know, delivering your product to, the people who are buying the product on a regular basis. Just maintaining those relationships and keeping that positive can really go a long way, because really it's, you know, someone like me who works in an office and is making these decisions, that's a great relationship to maintain. But having the good graces of all of the actual staff in the store goes a long way to selling your product, because those are the people who are interacting with customers on a daily basis. And customers love the co-op that they, you know, they can walk in and say, like in the produce department, somebody might be stocking out the Olden organic stuff, and that stocker knows Dick and Tracy because they deliver, and you know, they can have that relationship and talk to the customer. Oh yeah, they came in today with this stuff. It's new. You know, Tracy said, you know, the recipe's awesome, or I don't know, whatever. But just having that connection between the staff, the vendors, and the customers, I think is one of the things that really makes co-ops awesome and different than any other grocery store. And then again, just like before, your products on the shelf, being open to feedback. And that can be customer feedback, that can be staff feedback. Your product development is not over once your product hits the shelf. Really being open to what is that feedback and how can you continue to develop your product, I think is super important, and is the thing that will lend to your success. Keeping an open mind about that is really good. So that's what I have. I think we have plenty of time for questions if anybody has any.
I'll ask first, Megan. It's Jeffrey from Oshkosh Food Co-op. What is your favorite part of your job?
Oh man. So I have a really big job. So I'm the purchasing director, which means I'm in charge of the purchasing team, which includes the category managers. We have a category manager for each major department, and we also have a merchandiser and a few assistants. So I kind of wear two hats. As the purchasing director, I oversee all that, but then I also work as the produce category manager as well. So my favorite part of my job is the produce category manager part, because I love produce, and it's really where I grew up in the industry. But beyond that, I think more pertinent to this, working with local vendors in produce, with local farms, but also just local vendors in all the departments is why I'm in this industry. I mean, I've worked in co-ops for almost 20 years now, and it's the thing that still keeps me here. It's such a pleasure to help all these, kind of, especially the really new ones, figure out what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how to be successful. It's really a joy. Did I see something in the chat? Is that a question maybe? Do we need barcodes for our products? Yes. We do have ways of, and it depends on what your product is. So, if it's like you're selling apples or something like that, no, you probably don't, unless you're trying to put them in a bag. But otherwise, it makes, as from a retailer's perspective, your chances of getting your product on the shelf are much greater if you have a barcode. We do have ways of creating our own barcodes and giving vendors stickers that they can put on their products, but those only work in our store, and it means extra work for us, which means we're less likely to want to do it. So, I mean, I think if you really want your product to succeed and be easy for the retailer to sell and easy for the customer to buy, I definitely would recommend investing in the UPCs. As a small farm, there's some products that we can only produce seasonally, pasture-raised chickens. Can you speak to this and its implications? Chickens is a hard one. We've worked with, I don't even know how many chicken producers in the last, I don't know how long I've been doing this, like 10 years. And we've never really come up with a magical solution for that kind of thing. Produce is something that people expect to be seasonal and is a lot easier to work with. When it's something like chicken, where the consumer's kind of expectation of what they'll find in a grocery store is not seasonal, whether it's warranted or not is certainly up for debate, whether it should be seasonal, but consumers' expectations are not that it's seasonal. So that really makes it a little trickier. We have sold like frozen organic pasture-raised chicken or something like that. That's one way to make it stretch. But we also have found that sales on frozen chickens like that are just really not very good. So with meat, I would say it's tricky. With produce, it's relatively easy. Yeah, I don't know if that answered the question. I'll move on to the next one. If we are a newer business, is a nutrition label required at a co-op? That has to do with how much you're selling. You'd have to do a little bit more research if you, I think it has to do with a dollar amount of sales. If you're selling such an amount, you have to have nutritional labeling, otherwise not. And I think in our experience, for most smaller businesses, they don't reach whatever that threshold is. I'm sorry, I'm not super not super clear on what the numbers are there, but I think that's how that works. When and how do we get these barcoding and nutritional labels? Barcodes you can purchase. And I would have to, if somebody is interested, we do have a couple of resources that I could send to you about where to purchase the UPCs. Nutritional labeling, I am not positive. I think there's probably people who would do that for you. So you'd like send them your product and they would kind of break it down and give you that nutritional information. But I've never worked with a vendor on that. I think you'd have to do a little bit more research. I need to know where to get the UPC codes. Okay, do you want to, my email address is here. If you want to just shoot me an email, I could send you, I think we have somebody on staff who usually works with vendors through that, so I could get a list from him. What are your thoughts on local CBD or hemp products? For us, and I can't, you know, I don't know because I don't work anywhere else, the CBD bubble has burst for sure. About 2 years ago, we were seeing crazy sales on CBD. And since then, they really have dramatically decreased to the point where it's our general merchandise departments, which includes like supplements and wellness items, as well as body care. They're down about 20% year over year in sales because for during the climb to the CBD heights, we were seeing such amazing sales results that now kind of the decrease is almost more painful. You know, we still sell it. The thing that we've really noticed is that, you know, 2 years ago, it was like everybody was trying CBD for the first time. And we saw a lot of first time sales. A lot of people were interested in it. They'd heard of it, so they're going to give it a shot. And now we sell it, but it's a much more stable customer base. So it's like people who know that it works for them and they're repeat customers, but there's just not that sales volume. So if you're interested in getting into CBD, I personally would be really cautious. And I think the one trend that we've seen is that the oils are a lot less popular. The more smokable, the flower and stuff like that is a lot more popular these days. But overall, the CBD is just, we have not seen the sales that we were seeing, which was something we really did predict too, because that bubble was pretty big and quick. Are you less likely to take on a product that has a jar or bottle deposit? That's a good question. You know, there's kind of two competing things there, because I think, you know, there's a lot of people who are interested in reducing their waste. So I think there's a lot of interest in those kind of products that are returnables. On the other hand, it does take more work for us, and anything that takes more work for us is going to give us a little bit of pause, because we have to think, you know, can we actually realistically pull that off? So, you know, I think if it was, depending on the product, you know, if it was something like a milk bottle, which we've done before and is pretty standard, I think we would probably do it. I think we recently lost our returnable milk company that we were working with, but I would think we probably would be interested in bringing something in, because there are customers who are looking for reduced waste. If it was something, I'm trying to think of an example, something that just didn't seem like it would work for us as well, or was kind of more out of the ordinary. Canned or pickled goods. Yeah, that would probably give us pause. I don't know. And you know, a smaller co-op like a newer co-op might be more interested, as they might feel like they had more space to take on something like that. For us, it's really just a matter of like, okay, who's going to get the jars? Where are we going to store them? Can we make sure they're clean? Are they going to be stinky? You know, what if a customer brings one in that's not even rinsed? Then what do we do? So there's like all these questions that we'd have to answer, and just ask ourselves, like, is that worth it operationally for us? So I mean, I think if that's something you're interested in talking to the co-op and seeing if that's something that they think would be successful, and maybe even trying it out if they're willing would be great. That's hard for me to give a straight answer. Let's see, clamshell packaging that you spoke about earlier seems a lot less environmentally conscious. Our members have expressed a desire for us to limit unnecessary food packaging. How do you balance that as the co-op between the farmer and the consumer? That is a great question. Here's the thing that we deal with is many of our customers, less so during COVID, but it seems to be resurfacing. Many of our customers really want us to reduce plastic. We hear that over and over. However, our customers love to buy things in plastic. And when we do offer things that are not in plastic, they do not buy them as much. So we are really, it feels like we're stuck. And I think this is something the industry is going to have to grapple with, because I think we all want to reduce plastic. I'd love to reduce plastic. But for example, when I put strawberries out in a plastic clamshell next to strawberries that are in, you know, one of those kind of newfangled cardboard recyclable containers, I'll sell 5 strawberries to 1 of the plastic clamshells. And at a certain point, I can't afford to lose those sales, right? Because I need to have a sustainable business. So it's kind of like this loud minority, I think, at times, that is asking for less plastic. And my answer to them always is, I need you need to buy, like, we need to see those sales, because, you know, you can tell us all day what you think we should do, but if we don't see sales patterns shifting to support that, we as a business can't abandon plastic. And the plastic clamshells for salad are very similar. You know, bulk salad, I think in the end, we probably lose money on bulk salad, but between what kind of dehydrates on the top and what falls to the floor, and then people who can come and buy 6 little, you know, leaves of salad and barely, you know, buy anything, we really don't make much money on bulk salad. And a lot of people just don't buy it. A lot of people prefer to just pick up a clamshell when you're looking at sales dollars. So it's, I don't know, it's a huge conundrum. It's something we talk about a lot. And if you know, if the consumer culture ever really shifted, I think we could shift things pretty quickly. But that's kind of where we are now. I could do a whole presentation about that. Any other questions? I don't see anything else in the chat. No? Oh. Do staff members from Willy Street visit vendors' farms or kitchens to see what they're like? You know, we don't have a regular practice of this in terms of like inspecting them. We certainly, you know, that's one reason to look for things like an organic certification or different certifications, because you know that those are backed up by inspections. If we have suspicions, then we will certainly ask. That's only happened once or twice in my tenure, and it's actually both times been meat vendors, and we've asked to go visit their facilities or farms, and they both said no, at which case, you know, we just dropped them eventually, because that was a real red flag. You know, if you don't want us to visit your facility, that's not good. We do regular farm tours, and we do visit vendors to do things like, you know, we write a newsletter article about somebody, you know, we'll go visit them and take pictures. And I do like to go visit all my local farmers as much as possible. I have not been to Tracy's farm. I see her looking at me. But I do like to make those visits. And that's mostly just because for me, it's not about checking up on them. I know them, I trust them, they trust me. It's really just about facilitating that connection. And I think I have, other than those 2 meat vendors that didn't want us to come visit, I have never met a vendor who wasn't overjoyed to have me as a co-op come visit them and see what they were doing. And it really does help facilitate that relationship, which is fun and I think good for everyone involved.
Megan, I'm going to ask a question instead of continuing to type to switch it up a little bit. But I'm curious to hear from you what your commitment time frame to vendors looks like. You know, for example, if you know that you want lettuce in July, well, that would be a bad time frame, but let's just pick something. How soon out do you commit? What does that look like for vendors?
So for produce is different than everybody else. So for produce, it's we actually have winter meetings with all of our farmers, and we plot out the entire year. So you know, you try to do it like before they buy their seeds, generally, so that they know, you know, we're going to be buying lettuce from you from X to X, and then they know what to buy and what to plant. So like right now, I have the entire 2021 season completely mapped out for what we're going to buy from local farmers. For other vendors, it's often, you know, I think what we tell people is we'll keep your product on the shelf for 3 months and then we'll kind of reevaluate. And some, you know, there are things that are seasonal sometimes that are not produce, that we'll talk about. I think with those, it's, again, the timing is really important to make sure that we're timing it. You know, if you have a product that's a summertime product, don't approach me about that in October. You know, let's talk in March and we'll plan that out and figure out, you know, when we're going to offer it and make a plan. So I don't know if that answers your question. Our produce, I could definitely share more. I see you're from the Oshkosh Food Co-op. If you're interested in knowing more about like how we work with produce farmers to plan the season, I can definitely follow up with you about that too. We have a pretty good system in place.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful too with so many potential vendors on the line to understand how that might look in the future for us. So we appreciate your input.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I think that's the only way, by planning out a season like that, is the only way that you avoid really nasty conflicts in the middle of the season, because that happens. There's nothing like, you know, 5 people pounding on your door with spinach and they all have their own relationship with each other and they might not totally like each other. And now you have to make this decision and it's terrible. So, you know, knowing ahead of time who you're going to buy spinach from is very important for that. And then also just for maximizing what you have for local. So, you know, then once you start mapping out what your season looks like, then you start seeing where your holes are. Like, you know, oh, we have a carrot grower, but he's only going to grow in the summer. So maybe we could ask somebody if they're interested in growing for us fall carrots for us, for instance. And then you can really start making sure that you have all of your holes filled in terms of local production for what's possible. If you have produce mapped out for 2021, are you still considering other produce farmers? Probably not. Only because we're such a mature co-op that there's not a lot of room left in terms of, unless you're able to offer something that's like, I have a heated greenhouse and I'm growing this thing that nobody else in Wisconsin can do, or I'm making zoodles out of the zucchini that I grow and that's totally unique. We probably don't have a lot of room to make it worth anyone's while to offer us more produce in 2021. And that's hard. I don't like saying that, but it's the truth.
What if someone has a crop failure? Is there a penalty?
We actually have a backup system. So for most of the crops, we have a primary grower and then we have a backup grower. We used to have 3. We used to have a 3-tiered system, and that just got to be too unwieldy. But I think for our backup growers, we promise them something like 20% of our sales, something like that. So it's, you know, they're going to put that stuff in the ground and grow it. And then if our primary farmer has a failure, then we have somebody to reach out to. How do you determine shelf placement of a new product in your store? So that's really up to our merchandising team. And it's a whole science unto itself. There's something called the strike zone. It's just like the strike zone in baseball, but it's on a grocery shelf. So if it's in that, what is it, shoulder to knee area, that's considered like prime space. And we often will put local products there so that they're seen. I think every retailer has their own kind of philosophy on where they put that kind of stuff. but we've changed around a little bit because it's, local product is important to us, but also price image is important to us. We're known as being overpriced to a lot of people in the Madison area. So we have to highlight not only our local product, which sets us apart, but try to find those things that have a good price image and put those in front of customers too. So oftentimes you'll see on our shelves, like right at eye level, maybe we'll have the local version of whatever it is, and then right below it, we'll have something like your Surefine or your Field Day, or kind of like a generic low price option, so that people can kind of see the whole range of what we offer. We have this high-end local product if that's what you're here for, but we're not just that. We also have something that's a good price if that's what you're looking for, something that's going to be easier for people looking to save money. But every retailer, I kind of think, has a different, once you start looking at it at different grocery stores, like exactly where they're putting things on the shelf, it's kind of fascinating. It's a whole realm of psychology there. Would you ever consider pulling a local product due to a product image shift? For instance, it is now for sale at a different store, like a Quick Trip or a Walmart. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't consider pulling it for that reason. I would consider pulling it if sales decline. But I think, for Walmart is weird. I don't know if any of our local vendors would ever show up at Walmart. Quick Trip, we have a local hydroponic salad mix. It's now a Quick Trip. But I think one of the things that for me, like as a co-op, that I think is important and different is that when vendors start with us, they're starting with us. And I really view us as like a place where, they can be nourished and kind of grow and learn about their business. And I'm always happy to see them go out into the world and be successful. If that's what they want to do. If you really want to be on the shelf at Walmart, and you have a product that works in my store, which it seems like that probably wouldn't happen, but then do it, and if I can help you get there, that's part of what I do as a co-op. That's part of our mission. So no, I wouldn't pull it. I might honestly be happy for them. Well, the Walmart one's kind of weird, but if they showed up at Whole Foods, I'd be very happy for them. And that has happened, that, people start at a place like us and then eventually get to Whole Foods and get national distribution and become a much bigger business, which is great for them. Oh, you just added a smiley. Okay. That was another comment. Anything else? Just about out of time, I think, here.
I have one verbal question.
Sure.
My experience with brand new people coming into a store is, like you were saying earlier, the farmer's market price is what they want to sell to a grocery store. Mm-hmm. Do you have a resource that you can point people to figure out that sort of math?
That's a great question. I don't know of any like published resource, especially when you're talking about different product categories and like what is standard margin. It's probably because everybody holds it so tight to their chest. I think, I don't know, I guess the best advice I could give is just talking to somebody like me or, somebody like you, if you've done this, or maybe even other local people who are doing similar products to see what their experience has been. But no, I don't know of any resource. And that's probably because the grocery industry is just so, like I said, so tight-chested about how they price things. It's really hard to figure out. And for us, we know what costs we're paying and we know what other people are charging. So we have a general idea. But no, I think that's really tricky to navigate. But certainly knowing that if you come in and you're offering me the same price that you're offering customers at the farmer's market, that's not going to work. By knowing that ahead of time, you're sparing me having to tell you, which is really uncomfortable. So it's just easier that way. Let's see, 2 more, and I think then we'll have to be done. Do you determine specific quality standards for your vendors, a specific size and variety of a winter squash? We do not, no. And again, I think that's something that's very unique about co-ops. Whole Foods does. Other, big box grocery stores definitely do that a lot. If for produce, they might require a sticker or I don't know, whatever. I know Whole Foods even requires barcodes on each case, or, increasingly as retailers are feeling the squeeze of labor and margins on their end, they do have more of this kind of stuff that they require, but we do not. I'm from Westby Creamery, and I just want to say thank you for partnering with us years ago. Thank you. That's very nice. Not sure what you mean. Are farmers market pricing more or less than the price at co-ops? Ideally, the price that customers pay is the same at both, or maybe a tiny bit more at the co-op compared to what they'd pay in the farmers market. But what I, as a retailer, pay you, the vendor, should not be the same as what a customer at the farmers market pays you. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Cool. Yes, I love the sweet hugging carrots too. They're at the end of every presentation I ever give. So if you ever see me again, you'll know what to expect. Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Feel free to reach out via email if you have any questions. General markups. I can't really give you general markups. Our store's margin overall is a 36%. And that's a whole range of things that all even out to be that. So it really is variable. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to log off.
Thank you, Megan. Have
a great day.
Great. Now it's time for lunch, which is exciting. I'm going to play a video and slideshow that lasts about 17 minutes. So it'll restart itself. A lot of information about the co-op and what's going on. About 10 minutes before, so at 12:50, if you bring forth the oldest thing in your pantry, you may win a prize. So I'm looking for some. I was born in 1985, so it's something from 1985. You might get a super special prize. And enjoy your lunch, everyone.
Hey, Jeffrey, are you there by chance? Okay, the audio for the video is not coming through. At least it isn't for me.
Huh. Okay, well, 21st century, right?
Yeah, it's not coming through for me either.
Share sound. There we go. Or if you building, it's 155 Jackson Street, right there on the corner of Jackson Trailer. I'm Jeffrey Turan, General Manager of Oshkosh Food Co-op. I'm here in the construction trailer at the site where our co-op is being built as part of the Brio building. We're going to be on the first floor of the building. It's 155 Jackson Street, right there on the corner of Jackson and Pearl. I'm here today with Kevin Hansen, Senior Project Manager for Green Fire. he's doing the construction aspect of our project. So when you drive by the building, he's the one who is in charge of making that all happen. And we're happy to get an update from him today about the project.
Hi, my name is Kevin Hansen. I am the Senior Project Manager for Green Fire Management. And I am currently constructing the Brio building located at 155 Jackson Street in Oshkosh. We are also going to be doing the build out for the Oshkosh Food Co-op located on the first floor of that building. Today we are taking a video in our job trailer to kind of give an update of what's going on with the build out so far. The reason we're in here today is there is tons of equipment and materials and a lot of things in that space currently waiting to be installed. All the wall framing has been completed or is being completed. Next thing on the agenda is we're going to be putting in cooler and freezer starting next week, and then starting to do a lot of our mechanical build outs after that. Building the Oshkosh Food Co-op is a very exciting project for me. It's a very unique atmosphere that I don't get very often. So excited to do the build out here, and can't wait for them to be open.
Thank you, Kevin, for that update. And in addition to great news about an on-schedule project, we just surpassed our target of 1,500 members before open, and we're still 4 to 5 months before we even open the store. So we just had 1,500 members sign up, and as of this morning, it's 1,505. So we're just trucking away, and it's really encouraging to have so many people in the community support this project. And on top of the members, we've had such great support from community organizations and other people with their time, with their financial contributions, and it really is a warming feeling to know that everybody in Oshkosh is so supportive of this project. And I hope that I hope that the rest of the seminar goes well for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or any of the people who've talked today. You can get their contact information in the packet, or you can just go to our website or social media and contact us there. Have a happy day.
So my name is Ann Boyce. I'm with the Winnebago County Health Department. I'm one of the inspectors. I'm the environmental health supervisor. I'm just going to give you a little overview of what the Winnebago County Health Department, the Environmental Health Division actually will do for the co-op or any type of a retail food sale. So the objectives today, we're going to go over the department, what we do. We're going to go over some licensing information, selling food at the co-op or a grocery store, application requirements, and then just a little inspection overview, which I see Brian and Jacob already did a little bit of that also. So like I said, the Environmental Health Division is comprised of 1 supervisor and 4 specialists. Staff are assigned about 80% of their time in the sanitarian program, which is the inspection and licensing program, and about 20% in the environmental program. Our job requires a 4-year degree with an emphasis on science, environmental health, biology, microbiology. We also have to take a state or nationally recognized exam to be a registered environmental health specialist. And then we have to have continuing education and training, whether it be in food code, rec camps, swimming pools, any type of training we have to have routinely. Our jurisdiction for Winnebago County is everything but the city of Menasha. So if your establishments in the city of Menasha, they have their own health department and they are responsible for licensing their establishments. We do not go into their jurisdiction and they don't come into our jurisdiction. So we're a little bit different in Winnebago County. We do have 2 separate health departments in the county. About 8 years ago, we had 4 separate health departments in the county. So it's gotten a lot easier when City of Oshkosh and City of Neenah merged into Winnebago County. And that was about in 2012. So just a little bit of a background, our environmental health program deals with water, rabies, animal bites, nuisance complaints, childhood lead poisoning follow-ups. We do consult on bed bugs and arsenic and radon and mold and water issues. And we do pet facility inspections, which are grooming salons, pet stores, and kennels. Lately, we've been doing a lot of COVID follow-ups. So we've been in the office a lot doing contact tracing and phone calls and things like that. So our environmental health program is also the sanitarian program, which is our licensing program. So we do the licensing of hotels, any lodging facilities, tattoo and body piercing, water attractions, subby swimming pools. And then our main program emphasis is the retail licensing, the licensing of retail food establishments. So we do the food establishments serving meals. Those would be like the restaurants. We do the food establishments not serving meals, the grocery stores and convenience stores, the mobile restaurants, school food. And then we do a lot of temporary and special event food inspections. So farmers market, EAA, fairs, broad stands, art fairs, anywhere that somebody's selling food, we're involved in the county. So why is a license required? I came in late, so I'm not sure what Brian and Jacob covered, but the objective of food licensing and inspections is to keep food wholesome and safe. You know, we don't want people to become sick. We want to ensure that foods made in Winnebago County meet state and federal food safety regulations. 1 in 6 or 48 million individuals get sick each year from contaminated foods. So we want to bring that number down. Licenses are issued to a person or a company. They're location specific and can't be transferred from location to location. So if you open up and get licensed at an establishment in Winneconne and you want to move your establishment to Neenah, that license is not transferable. And our licenses run July 1st to June 30th. So definitions, wholesale means the sale of foods to a person or entity who's going to resell it. So if you're going to sell it to a grocery store and they're going to resell it to the consumer, that's a wholesale activity. Food processing is pretty much doing anything with food: canning, fermenting, distilling, pickling, packaging, grinding. So that would be what food processing is. Do I need a license? So if you're going to be selling your processed food products directly to consumers, you're going to need a retail food establishment license issued by Winnebago County or the jurisdiction where your establishment's located. Internet sales are considered retail sales. And with a retail food establishment license, you can do up to 25% of wholesale sales. If you're going to primarily sell your food wholesale to a grocery store to be resold, then you'll need to talk to Brian and his group about a food processing plant license issued by the state. And then canning, some wholesale meat, wholesale dairy products, those all require special licensing, and that would be a call to Brian's group. And I call Brian quite a bit too. So some of the foods that you might sell at a bakery or at a co-op or a grocery store would be the bakery items. So bakery items must come from a licensed retail food establishment or a food processing plant. Dairy items, no additional license is required if dairy products come from a licensed dairy plant. If you're going to wholesale dairy products, you're going to need to contact DACTP. And all the products must be fully labeled. Let's see, dry food mixes, packaged soups, things like that, those need to come from a licensed retail food establishment or a food processing plant and also need to be fully labeled. Eggs would need to come from a licensed food processing plant, fully labeled, stored under 45. And if you're a producer who sells from a flock of 3,000 or more, you need to be registered with the USDA. Honey, no license is required for honey sold as the beekeeper's own, provided that you're not whipping it, adding color, flavor, anything like that to it. Honey must be fully labeled, including a grade statement or ungraded if you're not grading it, and it must be handled in a way that assures safety. Jams and jellies, same thing, the finished product needs to come from a licensed retail food establishment or a food processing plant, and those also need to be fully labeled. And maple syrup, food processing plant license, processed in a commercial facility, properly labeled. Same with the pickled vegetables, the acidified and canned. They cannot be processed in a home kitchen. They need to be from a food processing plant. Whoops. Sorry about that. Any of the meat, the cattle, pig, sheep, goats, a retail food establishment license through us or a warehouse or a food warehouse license is required. You must be registered as a meat distributor. The meat must be processed at a Wisconsin or USDA plant and receive inspection slaughter. And the freezer must be inspected to assure sanitary conditions that the frozen meat can be maintained frozen. Meat must be fully labeled and cannot be repackaged. And if it's sold over state lines, the processing facility must be USDA. Poultry, oops, sorry about that. Poultry, same thing, retail food license or a warehouse license, registered as a meat distributor, must be processed as a state or federal meat plant, fully labeled, maintained at a temperature of 41 or below at all times. And then the raw vegetables, if you are selling raw vegetables, no license is required if it's a harvest cut. And if you rinse the vegetables, you can rinse the vegetables with potable water and no further processing is conducted, no license is required. A couple questions to ask yourself before either contacting the health department or DACTP is what foods am I going to make or sell? Where am I going to make it? Commercial kitchen, shared kitchen, renting a space at a restaurant. Where are you going to sell the food? Are you going to sell it at a grocery store, farmer's market, gift store? And who am I going to sell it to? An end consumer, grocery store, retail store? Those are all the questions that we will be asking you when you give us a call or contact us through email. we need that information to assess whether we're going to be licensing or whether we forward you to the state for licensing. So the application process for the health department is just know the requirements, learn what type of license is needed. Just give us a call, or if you call Department of Ag, DACTP, and they say, nope, that's not us, that's the health department, they'll refer you back to your health department of your jurisdiction. So first thing to do is check with your zoning, your local zoning, planning and zoning departments, just to make sure that you're properly zoned for your activity. Permits may be needed from the state and local building inspection department. If you are going to be doing any work, plumbing work, electrical work, anything like that, you will need to pull permits from the local jurisdiction. Discuss your insurance requirements for your business with your insurance agent, making sure that you have yourself protected insurance-wise, and just understand your current tax rules. You can contact the Department of Revenue for all of that information on the tax rules. We don't get into any of that. We just want to make sure that you're aware that that is something that you need to just have in your ducks in a row. So getting your license, what we require is your license application to be submitted. If it's a new establishment, we would need you to submit plans for review. What we do on a plan review is we make sure that floors, walls, and ceilings meet code, hand wash sinks are in the proper area. There's bathrooms available for employee and customer use, and equipment is all commercial grade. So we will do a plan review and give you any recommendations or requirements that need to be changed. And then just contact us to when your building is all done, everything's all set and ready to go. Give us a call prior to the inspection, about a week or two before the inspection, to set up an inspection. Or if you want, we do come through. If you find a building that you think might work for you as a kitchen and you just don't want to put the money down, we'll come through. We can say, yeah, no, this is going to work. This isn't going to work. You need to add this, this, and this. We do that for no charge. It's just called a pre-inspection walkthrough, or just a walkthrough inspection. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that, you guys aren't putting money down on a building that we can't license. So this is a way makes it easier for us, rather than coming into a place that we walk into and, it's like, there's no hand wash, there's no dishwashing, there's no whatever, and we can't license it. So it just makes it easy if we do that early in the process. Just do a walkthrough. And then you have a good idea that, yeah, it's going to work for me. And then we get you licensed. On your final inspection, we do our walkthrough, and you're good to operate your business. You just need to be aware of the food code, food processing codes, meat, dairy codes, whatever you're licensed under. And then we do periodic inspections for the health department. We're required to do at least one a year. And that's we do hit our one a year. Last year was the first year we didn't with COVID. But in the 37 years that I've been doing this, we have always hit our one a year inspection, and many times more than one a year. Also, if we do get a complaint on your establishment, we do a complaint inspection. Some of our inspections are announced. Some of them are unannounced. During COVID, most of them are. We do call up and make an appointment during COVID. But before COVID, most of them were unannounced. And then a couple key requirements for our inspection is facility must be a commercial grade kitchen. Your personal home kitchen is not allowed. Floors, walls, and ceilings need to be easy to clean, non-absorbent, and light colored. So smooth and washable. Always think smooth and washable for floors, walls, and ceilings. We do require that the food prep area is well lit. Don't want you cutting off your finger or something like that while you're trying to slice some vegetables in the dark. Food contact surfaces need to be clean and sanitary. Food needs to be stored, up off the floor, not under sewer lines, not under stairs. So in a sanitary manner, with appropriate temperature control. Water must meet standards. If you're on the city, we don't require a water test if you're on city water. However, if you're on well water, you do need to submit a yearly water test for bacteria to make sure your water is safe for drinking and using for food preparation. Equipment needs to be cleanable and well maintained and must meet NSF standards. The only piece of equipment that can be a home style piece of equipment is a freezer, either upright or a chest freezer. Everything else would have to be commercial grade. Dishwashing, there are dishwashing sinks requirements, a 3-compartment sink or a dishwasher. So we will, make sure that you're operating that properly, that the dishwasher is functioning, dispensing sanitizer or reaching the temperature. Hand wash facilities must be non-hand operated, which is a sensor, knee pedal, foot pedal, wrist blades, anything like that meets the non-hand operated. Plumbing and toilet facilities must meet code. Pests need to be controlled. Employees should practice proper hygiene, making sure that they don't work while they're sick, that they're wearing hats, hairnets to cover their heads, to cover their hair. And if you're selling products by weight, your scale must be inspected and sealed. If you're in the city of Oshkosh or the city of Neenah, they do have their city sealers that do this. If you're in one of the townships, that would be under the state. And then your food labeling your food must meet all labeling requirements, including allergen alerts. And I know Jacob talked about that because I saw that portion of it. A real good resource is the Wisconsin Local Food Marketing Guide, is what I use quite a bit for reference. So that is, you can find that on online. And who to contact. If you're going to need a retail license and you're in Winnebago County, you can contact us. If you're going to need a food processing or wholesale license, you can contact the state. And that would be Brian's group, and that's his number. So that's about all I have for today. Any questions?
A lot of content there, Anne. Thank you.
I know. And Tracy has the PowerPoint, so she can forward it to you guys, or I can forward it to you. Yeah, it looks like a lot, but it's just give us a call, like Jacob said or Brian said. Call us before, if you have any questions, always call us. It's easier to call us, find out what you need, rather than to try to change something that's already in place. Especially before you open. Like I said, that walkthrough, it's free of charge. We do it, we can look at a building, we can say, this is what needs to go here, here, and here. So it does save a lot on both us and the operator. So always remember that. We're here to educate, like Brian said, not to regulate, although we do have to regulate when we have to. That's not the intentions. We want you guys to succeed, do a good food product, and not cause anybody to become ill.
And I do, to that point, I do have a question. Because we're just doing, and I contacted you, I think about 1.5 years ago, and we're just doing vegetables. It's microgreens, lettuce, and basil. But even though we don't need a license, I obviously want to act as though we do. So I have run into some questions on like cleaning surfaces and that sort of thing. So where can I go to get information on how to keep practices in as though we were going to be licensed, just to make sure it's safe for consumers?
Sure. The Department of Ag has their food code fact sheets online. Those are a really good resource for you guys. You can go to the Department of Ag website. I don't think we have them linked on our website, but we as inspectors use the Department of Ag website a lot for those food code fact sheets.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions for Anne? Nobody.
Looks like the chat is clear. You just gave us so much info.
I know, and so fast too.
Oh, it was very well done. Very well done.
It's the end of the day, so I know you guys are probably sick of sitting. And it's Tracy's birthday today.
Yes, it is. That's why I picked today, was so I'd remember it was today.
I know. It's mine too.
Yours too. Yeah. Happy birthday.
Yeah, you too.
Happy birthday. If you weren't recording, I would sing happy birthday.
We can stop recording. I can do that.
Then I'll sing. Anybody who wants to join in.
We all
Oh boy.
You know, Oshkosh Food Co-op exists as like a nexus for the local food movement. So if you ever need information or need help or need support, that's what we're here for. You can contact us. We call it P6ing when we help other co-ops because it's principle number 6, but it's not just for co-ops. If anybody ever needs assistance, it's in our identity to help you out. So don't be afraid to reach out to Tracy or Melissa or me or anybody at the store. And with that, have a happy day. Au revoir.
So one acknowledgement I want to make before we go, well, two. The first is that we're very thankful and grateful for you all for attending this. And if you have not yet filled out our vendor application, we really would appreciate that. Again, this is a great start, but if you are interested in vending into the store, that is really how we get you into that system and onto that list as we begin essentially procuring and looking in the next very soon here, considering we're opening this summer. And with that said, I also would just like to thank SARE. SARE is a phenomenal organization, but the reason we were able to put this on was a generous sponsorship or grant from them. So thank you all, and thank you, SARE, and Jeffrey, and Tracy.
We do have one question. C. Rogers said, I have a question about the co-op.
Let's do it.
Proceed.
Hi, my question is the co-op going to be formatted similar to like Willy's, to where you're going to have both conventional and organic, or are you going to be more traditional, staying organic, vegan only? Because yeah, our creamery has both organic dairy cultured products and conventional.
Yeah, we're going to be a hybrid co-op. Hybrid co-op is a co-op that has both organic and non-organic stuff. Our purpose is local and to meet the needs of being in a food desert. We're going to be really the only grocery store where you can buy all of your food in a good radius. You have to have conventional there, and so we'll be working with vendors that have both organic and conventional.
Okay. As our creamery, as a manufacturer, we don't sell directly to any stores, so I'm working with distributors. So I'm just trying to link which distributor is going to fit best with you. Do you have a list of distributors that you're partnering with yet?
Tracy, on our list, do we have distributors or just direct?
We have some distributors. Who are you working with? Vern's right now?
Yes, we work with both Vern's and Co-op Partners Warehouse.
Yep, we've talked to both of them. So we will definitely be using one, if not both.
Okay, great. Because Co-op Partners just carries our organic line and our conventional butter, but Vern's carries pretty much our whole line.
Right.
And if you're going to be doing both, Vern's would probably be a better fit to give you the most selection. Okay, great to know.
Yep, between the two of them, we got you covered.
Great.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Tracy and Jeffrey, I guess we had talked with both of you a little bit. I'm with Jericho Road Gardens. And so we're growing in smaller quantities right now, and it's kind of changing. rapidly as far as what we have and what we can do. So I did send in a vendor application. I think it was just for basil, but there had been some mention of maybe more specialty products because we can kind of tailor it. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to have more of a discussion about that and who I should be directing those questions to.
Yeah, well, right now I do have your application, so don't think we forgot about you. Jeffrey's in the process of hiring right now.
Sure.
So I think, Jeffrey, we talked about May-ish.
Yeah, if it was the very end of April, I would be so happy. But May 15th is the absolute deadline. You know, we really missed we weren't able to have a winter meeting.
Sure.
So we will be happy with ad hoc sort of last minute additions. It's not like your application is going to be solid. We're gonna have my produce manager. Will have conversations with you about that to see how we can fill out our produce set.
Okay, sure.
And it was great meeting you at the farmer's market.
Yeah, you too. I'm so glad you introduced yourself.
Yeah, somebody, I don't remember her name, but we went to your place and saw your operation.
Yeah, Kathy is one of the volunteers. So yeah, she was very excited to be able to show you our tiny but hopefully growing operation. Yeah. So, and it's nice to put faces with the names. So thank you so much for doing this. It was very helpful, even though I only got the latter end, but it was very good. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for attending.
Yeah, certainly.
Any other questions? Jeffrey, we have a question.
So Jeffrey, the question is, who is the vetting vendor person at the co-op? Who will that be?
What is a vetting vendor?
Like who's
like somebody who vets?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, so I'll, it's kind of a flow chart. The board has its own policy, and really the only policy that the board has had is local, X amount of local, and this is what local means. And then I create policies for my managers, and they'll develop their own standards for bringing people in from that. So when you're bringing in produce or meat or candles or something like that, it'll really be the decision maker. There will be the particular manager of that department, and we'll have the center store manager, produce manager, prepared foods manager. So they'll be the vetting person. Melissa, do you think that was a clear, concise response?
I do.
Tracy, thank you.
Yes. Just want to make sure, BFF, you had asked that. So if it's not clear, don't be afraid to.
Yeah, we could end today's session and thank everybody for coming.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. This is definitely needed, and I hope that the co-op's able to continue to do something like this year after year, hopefully, being that education piece. Thank you, everybody, for your time and asking questions and sharing. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Tracy, for behind the scenes. And thank you, Ashley. Ashley Schneider is my intern. That's who that is. And she really helped. She put together the presentation in the middle and sent out all the packets. Thank you, Ashley. I hope you all have a happy day.
Oh, and you're welcome. Sorry, I just unmuted myself.
Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, everyone have a happy day. And it's spring, so it's light until 7. Make sure you get out there.